When Gu Shizhou traveled with Yun Yanli, they would often visit auction houses to see if they could acquire any notable items of value. More often than not, Gu Shizhou was able to find the youth-retaining herb at a fairly reasonable price, a Class 3 spiritual stone for a finely graded herb. She used to find the youth-retaining herb almost every time she visited an auction house, but as she was not interested in preserving her youthful looks back then, she was not very keen on acquiring the herb. Yun Yanli wanted to buy the herbs for her, but she turned him down. She would have reconsidered his offer, if only she knew about the use of the herb earlier. Now that she desperately needed one, it was nowhere to be found. Why did the herb go out of stock all of a sudden? Gu Shizhou was confused, so she asked the staff at the auction house. He refused to answer her at first, claiming that it was unprofessional to share the information. Secretly, Gu Shizhou offered a spiritual stone to him, and he finally talked. Actually, the youth-retaining herb is not something that is highly sought after. No one is selling the herb now because of the king of the Devil Kingdom. He is going to give the herbs to his beloved sister on her birthday. Hence, the herbs will be sold before they even make it here to our store. There is a king in the Devil Kingdom? Who is the king? Gu Shizhou was curious. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. Everything about the Devil Kingdom is a mystery. The outsiders will not be able to find out what happens within their territory. I heard that the recent years in the Devil Kingdom have been quite chaotic. Different kings took their own reigns and fought for power. The war finally ceased when the Great Devil King emerged and defeated the rest of the contenders. He managed to unite the divided lands into one unified kingdom. Gu Shizhou was moved. What is the name of the Great Devil King? The staff responded with an awkward smile. I do not know. I had to pay for the previous information with hundreds of gold pieces. Smilingly, Gu Shizhou offered him a Class 2 spiritual stone this time. Young man, if you can get me a youth-retaining herb, this spiritual stone will be yours. The stone instantly attracted the man. The value of one Class 2 spiritual stone was equivalent to 100 pieces of Class 3 stone altogether, enough to buy 100 pieces of youth-retaining herbs. The staff knew his job very well, so he was sure that he could figure something out. Swiftly, he took her offer. Gu Shizhou gave him a Class 3 spiritual stone as a deposit. When the deal was closed, she would trade that stone with him for a Class 2 spiritual stone. Money could indeed work miracles. The man had clearly proven his efficiency. That very night, he already had some news for Gu Shizhou, saying that he managed to get a youth-retaining herb for her. The only disadvantage was the soaring price. The seller asked for 2 pieces of Class 2 spiritual stones instead of 1, so he had to consult her to see if she would like to accept the offer. Certainly, Gu Shizhou would take it. She asked the man to buy the herb on her behalf. When she made her way there, the man was already waiting for her, with the herb in his hand. Gu Shizhou gave the young man 3 pieces of Class 2 spiritual stone, 2 for the youth-retaining herb and 1 for the young man's service. Then, she continued politely, I might have more business for you in the future, so there will surely be opportunities for you to make money. However, I do not wish anyone to know about me. You know what to do, don't you? The young man was smart. Don't worry. I will never talk about you to anyone else. Gu Shizhou gave him a nod and left swiftly. What if the man was only lying to you? He got the herb with only 1 spiritual stone, but told you a different story and asked for 2 stones instead. Weren't you worried that he was actually a con? The baby was not quite pleased. Chapter 2277. Entering the Devil Kingdom 3. The baby in her arms was not entirely pleased. I am not worried at all. I have the money. The only thing I lack is this herb. Gu Shizhou gave him an honest reply. Upon reflection, she decided that she needed to give the child a lesson. When you grow up and have a goal, there is no need to be overly concerned about the trivial. Little one, you need to learn that. Weren't you concerned that he was going to sell you out? I was certainly not. I am his biggest customer at the moment. Giving me away is a loss for him. The baby thought about what she said for a moment, and was convinced. He leaned his head against her shoulder and complimented her. It has been a very eye-opening journey with you. Gu Shizhou patted him on his back and responded. Would you like to have me as your master? She liked the baby and had indeed thought about having him as her disciple. He was smart. The baby stared at her in disbelief. Let me think about it, he said, as he could not seem to make up his mind. Gu Shijio thought that he would agree at once. To her dismay, he asked for more time to consider her offer. Suddenly, she gave him a gentle slap at the buttock before replying. Your time has passed. There is nothing left for you to think about. I am not accepting you as my disciple. When we find your father, I will give you to him. The baby was shocked. He looked at her intently, as if protesting for her act of abuse. Gu Shijio paid no further attention to him. She was about to venture into the dangerous Devil Kingdom. Some fights would be unavoidable, so it would not be convenient for her to have a baby in her arm. Gu Shijio thought about it, and decided to buy a backpack from the market. She disregarded the baby's protests and put him into it right away so that she could carry him on her back. Then she continued her journey to the Black Desert. The Clouded Leopard King was not able to survive in the desert, so Gu Shijio released it back into the wild and promised to look for it when she returned. It was easy for her to contact the beast. After all, their relationship was already secured with an agreement. Gu Shijio thought that the Black Desert was a dangerous and desolate place, like the Sahara. She pictured the entire desert to be a living hell, with nothing but black sand. However, the sight was more than what she had expected. The place was nothing like she had seen before. The Black Desert was indeed a desolate place with almost no vegetation, only black sand. Occasionally, the ground would be bursting with green fires, making the area look even more barren. It was not a place for people to stay for an extensive period. Even with the help of the devil-quenching clothing and the youth-retaining herb, Gu Shijio still felt suffocated walking through the bleak emptiness. Especially when all she saw was a plain view of black sand with no seeming end. It was a very depressing experience. If she had no choice but to stay in the darkness, even without those scary fires, she would still go crazy after a while. If Di Fui had really spent a year living in this place, she could already imagine how difficult his life must have been. She continued her journey for another 30 miles. That was when things started to change. The road was paved with piles of refreshingly green stones, aligned with 2 channels of flowing water by the sides. She looked further and saw a vista of golden fields, giving forth an odor of spring. It would be an amazing harvest, judging from the fields that bathed in the sun. Tall trees spared their shades along the walkway, while swinging willows danced in the spring breeze. Among the greens, many yellow spots of small, beautiful flowers blossomed with their greatest charm, decorating the dull trees like stars in the vast night sky. It was a rather magnificent view. Occasionally, people passed by the water channels or stepped into the yellow fields. Those must be the farmers. They looked casual and relaxed. She looked up and saw the golden sun, generously shining down its warm light on the earth. She felt comfortable being surrounded by a sunny sight. Little did she know that the Devil Kingdom was actually a scenic place, with a beautiful combination of agriculture and nature. She kept staring at the view in awe. Chapter 2278. Entering the Devil Kingdom. 4. It had been a long time since she last immersed herself in nature. Was this the legendary Devil Kingdom that she had heard about in rumors? She felt as in she was in a different world. It was a utopia. Gu Shijio took a deep breath, and was amazed by the abundance of spiritual aura in the air. Although the aura was not as strong compared to heaven, it was better than having none at all. A glimpse of hope flashed before her eyes. For the past 1 year and 6 months, Gu Shijio had been traveling from city to city. She realized that all 9 cities shared common characteristics. There were wizardry barriers to keep away the blood rain, and dense woods with ferocious animals surrounded every city's outskirts. Most of the inhabitants were out of spiritual power and lived in poverty. There was hardly enough food on the table to feed the families. The minority that possessed some degree of spiritual power had to venture outside and hunt for the precious spiritual stones in order to exchange them for the living necessities. Needless to say, most people out there were living in an abyss of suffering. It was beyond her expectation that the Devil Kingdom would be a piece of pure land, where people could live happily in their comfortable homes. There were many people in the streets. Some were walking while others were riding on their horses. Streams of people were coming and going. Indeed, it was a lively place. The way they dressed was not very different from the outside world. Some people tended to dress modestly, and some chose to let their elegant side out. There was a difference in their expression, though. They seemed at ease, indifferent to fame or gain. People dressed in many different styles, but Gu Shijie was the only one wearing the devil-quenching clothing among the busy crowds. After observation the place for a while, Gu Shijie finally understood why. The inhabitants of the Devil Kingdom were of devil lineage, so the occasional fires of hell that emerged from the ground would not do any harm to them. They were free to dress however they wanted. Thus, the streets were like a motley fashion parade, with each passerby dressed uniquely. Only outsiders had to wear the devil-quenching clothing. Therefore, Gu Shijie obviously stood out with her odd selection of clothing among the common people. There were hardly any visitors there. Gu Shijie had only met 2 or 3 outsiders after 2 hours of exploring the city. The people whom she met seemed like businessmen. They came in a special carriage that carried many different kinds of merchandise. Gu Shijie examined the items, and saw that those were actually local products from the outside world. There were many of them. She was the only outsider who came into the land empty-handed. The only bag was the small backpack that she used to carry nothing else but a baby. The baby was still wrapped in a baby blanket, revealing only his head outside of the bag. He was well behaved and smiled at any passers-by whenever their eyes met. The local people did not like to come any closer to the outsiders, so they all kept a distance from her. Thus, the outsiders tended to travel in groups, as they were more comfortable being in their own circle. A man on a carriage noticed how tired Gu Shijie looked, and offered to give her a ride. In order to avoid unnecessary attention, Gu Shijie was still using her facial disguise technique while walking in the streets. She looked good, but not as gorgeous as her true beauty. The women in the Devil Kingdom were generally very beautiful too, so Gu Shijie's rather common appearance was not attention-seeking at all. Therefore, she was sure that it was not her beauty that initiated the kind offer from the man in the carriage. She thanked him before leaping into the carriage. The silver wolf followed her into the carriage. It was as agile as a monkey. It caught the man's attention. "What is this?" "A silver wolf," Gu Shijie told him. The silver wolf had returned to its usual appearance. The man looked strong and was quite good-looking. He was considered a great fighter, as his spiritual power was already at level 7 or so. He was a simple and unadorned man, only here in the Devil Kingdom for business purposes. After some small talk, Gu Shijie managed to find out more about the Devil Kingdom, thanks to the man. A year ago, the Devil Kingdom was actually a mess. Many leaders tried to reign over their own territories. The masses were actually living in dire poverty due to the ongoing conflicts. However, about 10 months ago, a Devil King in ghostly mask stood out of the ordinary. He managed to recruit the strongest troops in the Devil Kingdom and defeated every leader, thus unifying the divided lands into one strong and unified kingdom. He cared about the people a lot. In fact, he managed to turn the barren lands into a utopia in just a few months, giving the people a chance for a contented life. In his words, Gu Shijie could see how much the man actually adored the Devil King in a ghostly mask. She started to make her own assumption on the king's identity. "What is the name of the Devil King?" With a hush, the man lowered his voice as he explained, "We are not allowed to talk about the name of the Devil King to outsiders. Only his closest people know his real name. Generally, we address him as the Devil King." Could the Devil King be him? Determined, Gu Shijie tried to get more information from the man as they chatted, but there was not much that he knew about the mysterious Devil King. He did not only conceal his name, nobody had actually seen his appearance as well. Most of the time, he would wear his mask to cover up his face. Unfortunately, Gu Shijie did not manage to find out more about the Devil King. Nonetheless, at least she was enlightened about some important things regarding her stay in the Devil Kingdom. For example, outsiders were generally forbidden to enter, unless the outsiders were the trusted businessmen of the Devil people. All these businessmen were required to wear a small tablet at their waist to prove their identities before they entered into the major cities. Troubled, Gu Shijie had no tablet to prove her identity. The man asked, "Miss, what kind of business are you here for?" I can see that you are not carrying many things with you. Indeed, she had nothing much with her. What should she sell? There was only a baby in her backpack, but it would not be the brightest idea to say that she was here to sell the baby. Gu Shijio took a look at the silver wolf that was sleeping soundly beside her, and was suddenly inspired. I am selling the creature. Shocked, the silver wolf raised its ears in confusion. It could not move its eyes from Gu Shijio for what she had just said. The man was surprised as well. Can the silver wolf understand human language? Gu Shijio gave him a reassuring smile and said, Yes. It is rare, isn't it? Perhaps I can get a good price for it. The man gave her a nod and chimed in. The silver wolf itself is a very rare species, even more so if they can understand the human language. I have never seen such an intelligent creature in all my life. It looks very adorable. Find authorized novels and web novel faster updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. He raised his arm and tried to pet the silver wolf, but it did not like it. With a grin, it gave him a low purr as a warning. Its fur stood on end like an agitated little cub. The silver wolf is one of a kind. Interested, the man exclaimed. How much do you plan to sell? I would like to buy it. The silver wolf took cover behind Gu Shijio and bit onto her dress tightly. She had to pull the dress out of its mouth to keep the dress in one piece. How much can you pay? The man raised a finger and said, 100 devil coins. He seemed confident. 100 devil coins seemed like a big deal. Smilingly, Gu Shijio picked up one of his glistening gems in the carriage and asked, How much do you plan to sell this? 10 devil coins. The gem was a precious red ruby, but was only sold for 10 devil coins. She could tell that he was determined, as he was willing to pay 100 devil coins for the silver wolf. Gu Shijio put the gem aside and pulled the silver wolf closer in her arms, gently brushing its soft fur. Chapter 2280. Entering the Devil Kingdom 6. My silver wolf is 1 in a million. 100 coins can only pay for its viewing. It is worth at least 100,000 silver coins. The man was speechless. He gave up on the silver wolf and sighed. No one can afford to pay the price unless the princess fancies it. The Devil King can afford to pay that price. In fact, they are the only ones who can afford. The silver wolf heaved a sigh of relief. Playfully, Gu Shijio gave it a gentle knock on the head. She then continued to inquire about the princess. From the man, Gu Shijio found out that the princess was actually the Devil King's sister. He cared about her very much, giving her anything that she ever asked for. She was not an arrogant princess. On the contrary, she was a very understanding and graceful noble who loved the people as if they were her own children. Her beauty was also unparalleled. All the people in the Devil Kingdom adored her. Gu Shijio listened attentively, and so did the baby in her backpack. He seemed to enjoy the story. Is the baby yours? The man finally noticed the baby. Their eyes met, and the man's heart was instantly melted by the baby's sweet, adorable smile. Gu Shijio laughed out loud but did not agree or disagree. He is sweet, isn't he? The baby is a boy, right? He is so beautiful. I have never seen such a beautiful baby. The man liked the baby a lot. The baby looked attentively at the black wooden tablet that was hanging loosely at the man's waist. Curiously, he reached out his little hand at the wooden tablet. Amused, the man was very keen on sharing. He pulled the wooden tablet off his waistband and gave it to the baby. Do you want to play with this? Here. Take it, but you have to give it back to me later. Without it, I will never make it through the city gates. The baby took the wooden tablet in his little hands. Gu Shijio also paid attention to the tablet. It was small but exquisitely carved with patterns of the rolling clouds. In addition, his name and identity could also be found. He was Luo Zheng, 25 years old, a businessman in the jewelry sector. Obviously, it was the wooden tablet required to enter the city. Without the wooden tablet, she could never make it through the gates. She looked up and noticed the dark green city walls from a distance. Miss, you need to get your wooden tablet ready. We are almost at Fanning City. Certainly, Gu Shijio answered casually before pretending to look into her sleeve for her tablet. A moment later, she seemed panicked as she exclaimed, Oh no! My tablet is gone. Luo Zheng was concerned for her. How did you lose it? Without the tablet, you will not be able to enter. With a sob, Gu Shizhou sounded as if she was about to cry. What should I do? It was with my child. He wanted to play with the tablet, so I gave it to him and forgot to keep it back. I must have lost it while we were on the way here. The baby was busy playing with the wooden tablet when Gu Shizhou made up the story. Irritated, the baby stared at Gu Shizhou fixedly. Gu Shizhou ignored the sharp look in his eyes and continued to make up the story. Brother Luo, I have come a long way to be here. Will you pretend that we are your closest relatives and take us with you into the city? Gu Shizhou was not very beautiful, but her bright, watery eyes were sparkling with hope, enough to charm the man. Chapter 2281. Entering the Devil Kingdom 7. Luo Zheng flushed crimson by her awkward request as he stammered. Are you saying that I have to pretend that you are my wife? I am not married. It is written on the wooden tablet. Luo Zheng spoke the truth. You can say that I am your sister, Gu Shizhou defended. Luo Zheng seemed reluctant. He explained. Miss, you should know that every visitor in the Devil Kingdom will be thoroughly investigated before entering. I am an orphan without any siblings. The guards at the city gates know me very well. Moreover, one tablet only ensures one entry. Even as a family, everyone has to show their own tablet except for the children. Gu Shizhou was speechless. She decided to ditch the normal path and use her teleportation skill instead. Therefore, she made up an excuse to go to the washroom so that she could leave the carriage. All of a sudden, the baby in her backpack dropped something. There were 2 items on the ground. Surprisingly, there were 2 wooden tablets at Luo Zheng's feet. He bent and picked up the tablets. Lady, your wooden tablet is here. He must have kept it in his baby blanket, he said delightfully while passing the tablets over to Gu Shizhou. Gu Shizhou threw a curious look at the baby and saw him smiling innocently. She accepted the tablet from the man and examined it carefully. It had the same carvings of the rolling clouds as Luo Zheng's. On the tablet it stated, Hua Shuyue, spiritual animal trainer, 22 years old, married. She did not know that the baby had the power to replicate and imitate things. In a blink of an eye, he managed to produce a wooden tablet that looked almost indistinguishable from the real one. The carvings and the material were exactly the same. Moreover, she liked the name that he made up for her. It was a very cultured name. This only made her more curious about the baby's presence here. How did the baby come around? Was he a reincarnation of Sun Wukong? Did he possess the same power as the monkey that allowed him to simply turn its fur into something it needed? Did he produce the wooden tablet with the same method? Gu Shizhou could not help but examine the baby again. She paid special attention to his hair. For a child of only a few months of age, his hair seemed thicker than the typical child of his age. The baby gave her a yawn and put his head down into the backpack. He was going to take a nap. This baby is really adorable. Luo Zheng did not like children very much, but the baby was an exception. He really wanted to hug the baby. Gu Shizhou answered politely with a smile. Thank you for your kind words. Deep down, she started to wonder about the extraordinary power of the child, and about the identity of his parents. Did his parents look similar to him? With the help of the wooden tablet, Gu Shizhou could easily enter the city. The city streets were bustling with life. People came and go, creating a rather boisterous city view. Houses lined the congested streets in neat order, row by row. The aesthetics of the buildings were rather classy. The classical and quaint architectural design reminded her of the same buildings that she once saw from the famous painting of the riverside scene from the Ming Dynasty. She felt as if she had traveled through time into another different era. The Devil Kingdom was clearly well governed by the very powerful Devil King. Suddenly, she thought about her people and felt awful for them. If they could move to the Devil Kingdom, their lives would surely be more comfortable. It was a shame that they were only mortals. Without the devil aura, they could not survive a day in this foreign land. Luo Zheng was obviously a frequent visitor here. His merchandises were sold to very specific places. Everything that he had to offer in his carriage was carried away to the shops that he was most familiar with. He had a good price, so it was a rather pleasant business experience. Once he settled his transactions, he asked if Gu Shijie had any plans in the city. Chapter 2282. Entering the Devil Kingdom. 8. Gu Shijie answered Luo Zheng casually. I will go around the city and have some fun. She tried to perform a spell to track Defuy's aura, but it failed. Was he even in the city? Did she head to the right place? Perhaps there was some unique mechanism here that could hide one's aura. Had his aura been masked? It was a long way into the Devil Kingdom, so she refused to leave empty-handed. Determined, she had decided to stay and carry out a thorough investigation. Luo Zheng was surprised by her nonchalance. Shuyue, have you forgotten that all outsiders cannot stay for more than a day in the Devil Kingdom? 2 days later, the devil-quenching clothing that we are wearing will lose its protective function, and we will be burned to ashes. Apparently, she was unaware of it. If that were the case, she only had 8 hours to spare. Luckily, she had 2 sets of devil-quenching clothing, enough to buy her another day in the Devil Kingdom. I must not leave this place empty-handed. I need to close the deal before I leave, she answered with a smile. Luo Zheng was a really helpful man. All right, I will accompany you to make sure that the silver wolf is sold. We can go to the western part of the city this afternoon. There is a market for majestic beings. Maybe we can try our luck there. Gu Shijie coughed. There is no need. I can go there myself. She never intended to sell the silver wolf, so she wanted to avoid going to the market. It was already noon. While Luo Zheng was trying to discuss for a fair price with his buyer, Gu Shijie chimed in and helped him fight for a better offer, thus maximizing his profit. In return, Luo Zheng invited her to a nearby restaurant for lunch. Gu Shijie accepted his invitation immediately. Restaurants were the center of the masses where people gathered. Perhaps she could get more information from the bustling people. Luo Zheng was not rich enough to afford a private room, so they looked for a table in the common hall instead. There were many people in the restaurant, but only a few outsiders. Luckily, the people here were not really bothered by the outsiders. They did not pay any attention to Gu Shijie and Luo Zheng when they entered the restaurant. The silver wolf, however, had certainly drawn much attention, especially from the women. Women, in general, had a soft spot for these furry animals. Therefore, many of them could not resist the temptation to pet the furry wolf. The silver wolf was arrogant. It ignored all the affection of the ladies and focused on its food. Since it was able to understand their conversations, it knew that the people found it rather adorable. Some even approached Gu Shijie and asked about the price of the wolf. Gu Shijie told them the price that she offered. Upon hearing the price, all of them avoided the wolf immediately. One of the women was not very pleased, so she added, "It is only a silver wolf. How can it possibly be worth 100,000 devil coins? You are clearly robbing us." Gu Shijie ignored her and continued to enjoy her lunch. Luo Zheng sighed. "Shuyue, your price is indeed way too high." "That is all right. Majestic beings will only go to their fated owner," Gu Shijie reassured him. Luo Zheng kept quiet. While Gu Shijie was eating, she also focused on the conversations at the nearby tables. Most of the people there were talking about the contributions of the Devil King. Clearly, they adored and respected the Devil King very much. When they talked about the Devil King, they never mentioned anything about his name, yet addressed him very formally. From their conversation, Gu Shijie found out that the princess would be celebrating her birthday tomorrow, so there would be a massive celebration in the city. People were actually busy preparing for tomorrow's event in the bustling streets. As for the Devil King, he did not take her birthday present lightly. According to the rumors, he had left the city to look for the best birthday present for the princess. Chapter 2283. The Devil King. No wonder that the city is so cheerfully decorated with the red ribbons almost everywhere. All the streets are clean too. It is all because of the prince's birthday tomorrow. Too bad, we have to leave tonight. Otherwise, I would like to stay to witness the celebration. Luo Zheng pointed out with regret. Gu Shijie took a sip of her wine. Suddenly, there was a hubbub in the streets. An announcement could be heard from afar. The Devil King has returned to the city. Gu Zijie's heart skipped a few beats upon hearing the announcement. She really wanted to meet the Devil King. She had to make an excuse to go to the outside of the restaurant and have a careful look since the hall in the restaurant did not have a view of the street. To her surprise, all the people around her left their seats to join the crowd too. Ah, the Devil King has returned. We have to welcome his arrival. Great. I did not expect to see the Devil King today. I must not let the chance slip. The lively discussions continued. The clamors of the people bubbled up as they rushed outside. Gu Shijio did not know what to say. At least, she did not have to make up any excuses. She followed the people to the outside of the restaurant. The bustling streets were becoming even livelier with the hustle of larger crowds coming from every direction. People had to inch through the teeming streets to get to the best spot. The people lined up along the streets in an orderly manner, even though it was crowded. All of them anticipated the king's arrival. Gu Shijio looked in the same direction as everyone else did. Her heart throbbed in excitement. From a distance, there were troops circling a carriage. The material of the carriage was hard to tell. The main color was bluish-green, complemented by delicate, jewel-like paintings of fleecy clouds. A red sun was pictured plunging its charming ray through the white puffs. At the bottom, roaring waves surged turbulently. At the top, a group of seagulls hovered over the surging waves unafraid. The roof of the carriage resembled the top of a palanquin. At every corner, hung a small, classic bell that made a ringing sound every time the carriage moved. Rhythmically, the bells chimed and made melodious sound along the way. For triumphantly happy flying horses carried the carriage. They were all tall and strong, fastened by a jade-like saddle that shimmered in the sun. The devil soldiers and generals walked alongside silently. The troops were clearly trained. All movements were done in unison with an emphasis on order and command. They exuded their iron wills through every single step, giving the people a sense of intimidation. The curtains were drawn, so the people could hardly see the face of the Devil King. The Devil King, Your Majesty. As soon as the troops drew closer, the crowds dropped to their knees and bowed before the carriage as it moved. They bowed to the Devil King with great admiration, like how the mortals would react when they met a magnificent celestial being. It was nothing like the way people bowed before Yi Ling. Here in the Devil Kingdom, the people truly adored their king. It was a way to show how much they actually respected the Devil King. As for Yi Ling, all he did was to force his people to kneel, so they did. As the troops continued to travel through the bustling streets, people cheered and celebrated in great excitement. The waves of cheering were so loud, almost deafening. Gu Shijio was among the crowd and felt as if she was going to be deaf. The baby in her backpack woke up and had to raise his head to see what was going on. His sleepy eyes scanned the people around him. As for the silver wolf, it was worried that it might get lost in the sea of people, so it followed Gu Zigius every step very closely. For someone like Gu Shijio, who had been highly ranked with a superior status for so long, she would definitely not kneel for anyone. It was not a must to kneel anyway. Thus, she stood leaning against a wall and watched as the troops passed by. Luo Zheng tried to pull her down, but she refused. Attentively, she tried to observe the man in the carriage through the curtains, but there was no way she could see beyond the screen. She could not even identify his robes. Chapter 2284. The Devil King. Too secretly, she performed an incantation in her sleeves to initiate the tracking spell. If the man in the carriage really were Difui, she would know immediately from the tracking spell. She was standing very close to the carriage, so there was no reason that the spell would fail this time. A few moments later, the result came as a disappointment. Her tracking spell failed to pick up Difui's aura in the carriage. Hence, she could safely assume that the Devil King in the carriage was not Difui. Overwhelmed by immense disappointment, she was dispirited and obviously uninterested in the rest of the troop. She took a turn and was ready to go back to the restaurant. Suddenly, she heard the sound of a crane. The loud call of the flying crane got everyone's attention. The princess is here. The princess is really here. Gu Shijio looked up and saw a flying crane soaring at great heights with its wings wide open. The celestial crane was 3 times as big as a normal crane. On its back stood a young lady in a white dress. It was a very graceful sight as they watched her dress dance in the wind around her slender figure. Slowly, The celestial crane made a landing as it dived from the sky. Gu Shijie was utterly surprised. A thin cloth covered the face of the lady in white, revealing only her bright, watery eyes. Like a cold river that was enshrouded in a fog, her mask had certainly added a great sense of mystery to her grace and beauty. Gu Shijie was observant enough to notice that the lady was actually the woman she saw in Suiye City. She was the one who gave the longevity locket to the child. What she did not know back then was that the lady was actually the young princess of the Devil Kingdom. Could the Devil King be the mysterious man who used the puppet string and gave the abuser a lesson? Before the celestial crane touched down, the princess leaped and landed gracefully in front of the carriage. "Brother, you are finally back." The troop stopped progressing at this point. At the window, the curtain was pulled away, revealing the man that was sitting within. Finally, the people got to see the man in the carriage. They also got a glimpse of the interior of the vehicle. The interior was brilliantly decorated with a sense of luxury. But no amount of luxury was comparable to the aura of the man. Casually, the man sat leaning against his seat, covered in robes of fiery red. The robes looked ethereal, making him look as if he was sitting afloat on rolls of fluffy red clouds. His ink-black hair was left undone, hanging loosely around his body. Meanwhile, a red crown piece was placed on his head, further complementing his pitch-black hair and his fair white skin. Like the rumors had said, he was currently wearing a butterfly-shaped mask, revealing only his bright eyes and perfect lips for general admiration. He held the curtain with one hand, so people could see his slender fingers and 3 jade rings that were exquisitely carved. Nonchalantly, he sat in a relaxed position. He looked just as charming as ever, even when he was casually sitting in the carriage. However, his aura was certainly very icy cold, completely unapproachable. One quick look in his eye was able to make her flesh creep. Upon seeing the young princess, his stern face broke into a sense of delight as he said, "Yuan, Yuan, I did not expect you to arrive before I did." The princess gave him a cheerful smile before she answered, "Of course. I am excited to celebrate my birthday with you, brother. Have you got me a present?" "Surely. I will show you tomorrow." The Devil King gave her a chuckle. His voice was very soothing, as relaxing as the sound of flowing water gushing over rocks. "Why do you have to keep me guessing? You do know that I am quick-tempered." The princess responded adorably. Delighted, the Devil King leaned against the wall of the carriage and teased, "Go ahead then." The princess stamped her foot lightly in protest. "Brother, you are bullying me again." The Devil King gave her a tight smile before changing the topic. "Yuan, Yuan, what have you done about the thing that I asked you to do?" "I destroyed it." "Good, well done. Is there any reward for me? Let us unbox the present in advance, shall we?" The Devil King started to laugh. His laugh was the most beautiful thing that the people had ever heard. He then let go of the curtain before commanding, "All right, that is enough. You should leave now. As for the present, you will get it tomorrow." Smart enough, the princess knew what to do. "All right, I shall wait," she answered. With a leap, she landed safely on the back of her celestial crane. It waved its gigantic wings and soared up high into the sky. The troops resumed their journey while the soldiers continued to wave the flags amidst the cheering crowds. The people of the Devil Kingdom surrounded the streets in exuberance. They stayed until the carriage departed far enough before they dispersed and returned to their normal routines. The excitement of witnessing the king was enough to fuel their energy for the rest of their day. Gu Shijie, along with everyone else, returned to their seats. After the hustle and bustle, people started to engage in lively conversations, all but the same topic, the Devil King. They talked about his tactics of trying to bring the divided lands into one, about his policy of benevolence, and certainly about the young princess. Someone added, "It has been a great misunderstanding. The young princess is not actually the Devil King's sister, but his foster sister." "Ah, understood. I have heard about it too. The Devil King has been so nice to her. Perhaps she will be the Devil Queen someday." Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. She could be. Only the young and graceful princess can be a match to the Devil King. What do you think? Will the Devil King propose to the princess on her birthday tomorrow? It is hard to tell. After all, they are both single. Also, they are very close. The discussion continued. Shiyu. Luozheng kept mentioning Gu Zijia's name in a panic. Ever since they returned from the streets, she had been lost in thought. She did not pay attention while eating and kept poking the food with her chopsticks instead. The prawn was now minced meat on her plate, but she did not notice. The silver wolf bit and pulled her dress to draw her attention. She frowned in confusion. Shiyue, you have been caught in a daze. What's with you? Luozheng was concerned. Gu Shijio shook her head to dismiss his concern. I was shocked by the greatness of the Devil King, she lied. Relieved, Luozheng smiled. Not many can resist the Devil King's charm. It is said that at least half of the women in this city adore him. He is really a strong man with amazing kung fu and great capability. Moreover, he is very handsome. He started to describe the Devil King, now that they had started talking about him. If only our ruler in the mortal world could be as great as him. He sighed. To his surprise, Gu Shijio suddenly took off her backpack and handed it over to Luozheng. Help me look after the baby, she said. Luozheng was obviously taken by surprise. I need to run some errands. I will be back soon, so please help me look after them. Gu Shijio turned and left swiftly. He took the baby in his arms. Before he knew it, Gu Shijio was already long gone. Luozheng took a look at the baby in the backpack, then at the silver wolf that was busy licking the remains on its plate. With a sigh, he shook his head in disapproval. Perhaps she needed to relieve herself in the washroom. Surely, he did not expect that she would be gone for an hour. He had been waiting for her, but she never came back. An hour was far too long for relief in the washroom. Did something happen to the lady? He wondered. Although the Devil Kingdom had been quite peaceful for the past couple of months, it was still not entirely safe for a lady to travel alone. After all, there were still many devil beings lingering along the streets. He waited but grew more and more anxious. Then he carried the baby in his arm and walked the silver wolf to the washroom. He dared not venture into the lady's private washroom, so he had to ask a lady to help him. It is certainly embarrassing for the man. Briefly, he told the lady how Gu Shijio looked. Chapter 2286. The Devil King 4. Soon, the lady approached him from the washroom and told him that there was no one in there. Luozheng was obviously surprised. He took a look at the baby in his backpack and saw his big, bright eyes looking straight back at him. Where did your mother go? Did she get into any trouble? The baby ignored him and looked away. Luozheng was not expecting the baby to understand. After circling the place helplessly for a while, he decided to return to the restaurant, in case she was already waiting for him at the table. He thus returned to the restaurant, hoping to see her there. However, he noticed that the atmosphere was different as soon as he stepped into the restaurant. All the guests were no longer talking loudly. Instead, they kneeled on the ground with their heads down, all facing the same direction. Intuitively, Luozheng looked towards the same direction and was immediately shocked. Surprisingly, there was a lady in white in the restaurant, accompanied by 4 servants. They were walking upstairs. Judging from the back of the lady in white, she seemed like the young princess. He could not believe that someone as noble as the princess would visit the restaurant. It finally explained the shocked expression on everyone's face. The lady in white turned around and saw Luozheng, who was now standing by the door. More accurately speaking, it was the silver wolf that had caught her attention. From the look in her watery eyes, she seemed interested. She was looking at Luozheng sternly to examine him. The unnecessary attention from a princess made his skin creep. For a moment he did not know what to do or where to go. The lattice face was still covered under a thin veil, so there was no way he could study her expression. Her floral scent had filled the entire hall, so all of them were also intoxicated. She then turned around and murmured something to her closest servant. The servant gave her a firm nod before landing in front of Luozheng right away and requested, "Is this silver wolf for sale?" Luozheng was still caught in disbelief. He was obviously confused. The servant continued, "You are a visiting businessman from the outside world, aren't you?" The princess is interested in the silver wolf, so you can make a deal with the princess right now. How much is your offer? Luo Zheng answered. About the silver wolf, it is actually not mine. It belongs to my friend. Where is your friend? She asked me to take care of the baby and the wolf while she was away, and she has yet to return. Is she going to sell the silver wolf or not? With a nod, Luo Zheng sounded determined as he replied. Yes. However, the price that she offered was rather high. How many devil coins? It cannot be 10,000, can it? The servant was displeased. Sweat rolled down his forehead as he continued to converse. It is not 10,000. She asked for 100,000 devil coins. I think that you should discuss it further when my friend returns. The price obviously came as a surprise to everyone in the restaurant. They all looked at him in disbelief. The servant frowned as soon as she heard the offer. The price? 100,000 it is then. I am taking the offer. The young princess interrupted with a firm confirmation. Certainly, everyone in the hall went wild. Luo Zheng's jaw dropped in utter surprise. Troubled, he did not know whether to go ahead with the business or not. The master of this creature is not here. Since you are well informed about the price, you can sell it now and give her the money later. Are you really asking for the princess to wait for you here? The servant was irritated. You should know that hardly anyone can afford this price. Once the chance passes, it is gone for good. The servant was right. He should not make the princess wait. Determined, Luo Zheng took the deal on Gu Zijia's behalf. Everyone was delighted at the deal, except for the silver wolf. It went into a panic. Chapter 2287. The Devil King 5. When the servant approached the silver wolf to carry it in her arms, all of his fur was standing on end. Unrelentingly, it kept growling at the servant. The servant was trained, so she was not concerned about a young silver wolf's protest. With the flick of a finger, a glimpse of green ray flashed before its eyes before turning into a rope. Instantly, all four of its legs were tied. Driven by indignation, the silver wolf fought back unexpectedly and splashed the servant with water that was drawn from its mouth. The servant was unprepared, so she was thoroughly soaked. The silver wolf was trained with water-related spells. To be fair, it was good with the skill. In the Devil Kingdom, it was very rare to come across an animal that actually knew how to use a spell. Only those with spiritual stones could use the spells that were related to their characteristic. However, most of the spells were either earth or wood-related. Water-related spells could hardly be found. All the ferocious beasts had to cultivate for at least 100 years before they could start using a spell. As for the young silver wolf, it looked no more than a year old, and yet it could utilize the water-related spell so accurately. It was such an extraordinary creature, most probably the only one of its kind. They initially thought that the price of 100,000 devil coins for a wolf was a waste of money or a loss. It was enough to buy an extravagant house in the Devil Kingdom. However, after witnessing what the young silver wolf could actually do, they all agreed that the money was well spent. The princess had good taste. Although the silver wolf was good and talented, it was no match to the servant, whose spiritual power was already at level 6. In the end, it was captured and brought to the princess. The princess carried it in her arms and brushed its soft fur on its head, gently. It is better for you to be with me. I can train you better and make you stronger, she reassured the wolf. Its mouth was sealed, as tightly as the ties on its body. It could not help but purr. Anxiously, it fixed its red eye on the baby, as if asking for help. The baby returned the gaze with his big black eyes, but there was nothing he could say. Thus he pursed his lips in a silent protest. The young princess noticed the baby. She studied his face and was immediately amazed. She took 2 steps forward but changed her mind soon. She could buy the silver wolf, but she certainly could not force the man into selling the child. Swiftly, she decided to leave the restaurant. After giving her servants some orders, she then left promptly. One of the servants approached Luo Zheng and gave him a silver note. Its value was about 20,000 devil coins. Mister, as the trip has been a rather hasty arrangement for the princess, she does not have enough money with her at the moment. Will you come with us to the residence to get the rest of your money? Under the current circumstance, Luo Zheng could only agree, sure. With the baby on his back, he quickly followed the servant and left the restaurant. He already sold the silver wolf on her behalf without her consent, so he certainly had to get the remaining payment for her. Hopefully, the lady would not blame him for his decision. Speaking of which, where did the lady go? Luo Zheng had been worried about Gu Shijie. It was apparent that she did need to go to the washroom. She left because she needed to go to the residence of the Devil King. She did her research and found out that the new Devil King currently resided in his residence. Gu Shijie managed to see the face of the Devil King clearly. He was Difui. Although he was not wearing the robes that he used to wear or the same mask, Gu Shijie could still recognize him. His change of physique and voice failed to conceal his identity from her. Perhaps his disguise was able to fool everyone else, but it was not good enough to fool Gu Shijie. After all, they had spent a lot of time together for her to know him well. Also, they had already shared intimacy. Therefore, she was sure that he was really Difui. Chapter 2288. The Devil King 6. Her intuition was right. He was the mysterious puppet master. After a year of being apart, she certainly did not expect that he would possess such odd skills of kung fu, and even go on to become the Devil King of the Devil Kingdom. It seemed that no matter how dark the situation seemed to be, he could always find a way and punch a hole through any barrier, shining his light in a whole new world where he was welcomed and celebrated. Reviewing her own progress, Gu Shijie realized that she had not achieved much in the past year. She spent most of her time searching for him. She was quite disappointed with herself, actually. Gu Shijie took a deep breath. Being a stubborn person, she liked to finish everything that she started. Since she wanted to find him, there was no stopping her. Her anxious heart could finally take a rest. The Devil Palace was rather vast. A wizardry barrier secured the perimeter of the palace. The view on the outside only revealed many buildings that were floating amid the clouds, like the celestial palace that were said to be afloat in the sky. There was a main gate that was tall and grand, guarded by the most well-trained troops. Under such a level of surveillance, most people couldn't enter. In order for Gu Shijie to enter the palace, she could either use the main gate or break the wizardry barrier first, and use her teleportation skill after. She had only seen him once, so she was not sure how he felt about her. There was no way she could request for him so publicly through the main gate. She decided to make a door for herself, so she could sneak into the palace silently to have a look. The wizardry barrier was very well built, but it was not a problem for Gu Shijie at all. She knew almost every kind of wizardry barrier, and how to solve them. She performed an incantation with her fingers, and soon, there was a ripple on the barrier where she stood before. Glimpses of light flashed before her eyes and the barrier slowly faded away, revealing a small, round entry. With a leap, she teleported right away. The buildings were densely built together, well connected by many dividing paths. The stones on the mountains were oddly shaped. As for the view, it was a rather scenic place, surrounded by an abundance of refreshing green. All the decorations in the palace were very well thought. Every piece was placed to meet the aesthetics of the area. The richness of sagacity lingered in the air, making her feel very comfortable. Needless to say, the spiritual aura in the Devil Palace was definitely stronger than in the city. She took a deep breath and was amazed by the floral scent in the air. There were many guards and servants in the palace. Occasionally, they would appear in different corners at different times. All of them possess great kung fu, mostly at level 6 and above. Therefore, Gu Shijie made sure that each step was taken very lightly to ensure the lowest level of noise. The guards were very observant too. While Gu Shijie was hiding behind the bamboo trees, she accidentally stepped on a dried branch, and the cracking sound immediately caught the guards' attention. If she were any less agile, the guards would have exposed her right away. After a brief tour about the place, Gu Shijie could almost be sure that the Devil King was Difui. The arrangement of the place looked somewhat familiar to her. It was almost the same as Difui's residence in the upper bound. Gu Shijie overheard from the servants that the Devil King had already returned to the palace. Knowing him, she was sure that he would be in his study room at this hour. She tried to locate his study room the way she remembered the layout of his residence. From a distance, there was an area that resembled it. It really did look like a study room. Some servants were guarding the door quietly. Gu Shijie wanted to teleport into the room to check it out, but she noticed some movements and immediately went into hiding again. Not too far away, there was a group of people. A young lady, dressed entirely in white, was taking the lead. Some of her hair was down, and the rest were loosely tied with a hairband. She looked beautiful. Gu Shijie suddenly felt that her hopes of meeting him now had sunk. The young lady was actually the princess. She dressed very casually at her own place, without a thin veil to cover up her face this time. Gu Shijie could finally see her appearance. Chapter 2289. The Devil King 7. The girl looked beautiful and elegant. She looked somewhat similar to Yin Qingluo, and as well as Yun Yanli's sister, Yanqing. The lady looked just like the person in the tomb she dug up, which supposedly belonged to the wife of the owner of Luohua City. However, that person was dead, while the one in front of her was more lively and pretty. She did not expect Madame Yun to fake her death to come to the Devil Kingdom. Furthermore, she became the Devil King's sister as well as a princess, Princess Yuan. What could have happened over the past year? What made these two people become a loving brother and sister? When she met them on the street just now, Di Fui once asked Yuan if she had settled his matters, and Yuan said that she destroyed it already. It seemed that the one who took away Di Fui's bedding in Luohua City was Princess Yuan. She claimed to be the fiancée of Di Fui. Was it acquiesced by Di Fui? Did Di Fui really want to get engaged with her? Did he really want to marry her? When she thought of the last few questions, Gu Zijia's heart automatically dismissed them. Di Fui would not change his mind so quickly. After all, he came to the Shura world for her. She took a deep breath and tried to calm her mind. Meanwhile, she hid in the dark to see how the situation went on. When the princess came, she was stopped by the guard at the door. "Princess, the Devil King is not available to see you now." She frowned. "Are you sure? He said that he would see me after he comes back." Before the guard said anything further, there was a voice from inside. Yuan, come in." It was the Devil King, which was certainly Di Fui. Princess Yuan proudly took a look at the guard and entered the hall right away. Gu Shijie was waiting in the dark for the princess to leave. Fortunately, it was rather brief. She exited the study room in only 5 or 6 minutes. After a while, she came out and left with the maids. Gu Shijie looked at the hall, and her heart pounded. She did not know why she was nervous. After all, she had been searching for him for a year. Now that she had finally found him, it should be normal for her to be excited, right? She waited for 2 or 3 minutes to calm down. Then she made up her mind and teleported into the hall. According to her judgment, he should be handling some official documents in the study room at the moment. Hence, she was ready to teleport right inside his study room. In this way, she would not alarm any guards. Would he be happy or surprised if he suddenly saw her? Could it be both? Gu Shijie was optimistic about her plan, but what she did not expect was that this was not a study room, but a bathroom. She just happened to teleport into the hot spring pool. She was caught off guard, and when she opened her eyes, she found that she was submerged in water. It was the bottom of the hot pool that was bubbling. She almost gulped down some of the water. She was shocked for a while and subconsciously floated out of the water. When she opened her eyes, her body went slightly stiff. Someone was floating on the water, not far from her. His black hair was like a waterfall, and the red robe he wore was like a real fire. His eyes were watery, and his thin lips were curved perfectly. However, his lips were slightly pale. At this moment, his eyes were on Gu Shijie. His glare was ice cold. Gu Shijie was stunned by his stare. She felt that this situation was quite familiar, but she could not remember when she experienced it. Although this unexpected situation made Gu Shijie a little embarrassed, fortunately, she was still very sensible. Knowing that she was still in disguise, it was reasonable if he did not recognize her. Nonetheless, he was quite calm. If a woman suddenly emerged from a man's bath in a similar manner, this woman would probably be killed. Chapter 2290. The Devil King 8. She took a light breath and looked at him. He did not wear a mask, so it was an appearance that she was familiar with. She picked up her wet hair and smiled at him. Fui, I haven't seen you for a long time. I finally found you. Although her appearance was not her original one, she spoke using her genuine voice. Hence, he should be able to recognize her. She would have immediately washed her face and restored her appearance if the makeup on her face could be washed off so easily. Difui stared at her with a stern face, but he ended up laughing. The laugh sounded quite mean. Gushijio, it's you. Are you looking for me? What is the matter? His tone was rather flat, and it sounded like he was not talking to a friend. Gushijio remained silent. She did not expect him to be so cold. You have been missing for more than a year, and have not returned to Luohua City. I was worried for you. Why are you worried about me? Were you worried that I would continue to look for you and not let you go? Guzijia's face was pale when he asked that question. She subconsciously rebutted. I didn't say that. Oh, so it was not because of this matter. Why else would you be worried about me? You said that you felt disgusted when you see me and do not want to see me anymore. I have left as you wished. I have been very considerate all this while, so what else do you want from me? Why are you looking for me? He said everything in a calm manner. However, the words that he said was like a sterilized knife taking stabs at Gushijio. She resisted and tried to express her intention. I know that what I said at the time was very hurtful, but you lied to me first. Naturally, I was outraged, so I had no choice but to speak bluntly. I'm sorry. Miss Gu, I did cause trouble to you before, and I also lied to you when you lost your memory. I will always feel bad for what I had done. I am too into you, so if you are looking for me because of that matter, and want me to be responsible for you. Difui paused and leaned forward toward Gushijio, whose face was quite pale. As you have been so eagerly searching for me, is it because you have finally realized that you want me to be responsible for what I have done to you? If this is the case, of course not. Gushijio quickly interrupted him. She was excited, but she could still suppress her emotions. However, her lips were slightly dithered. You overthink. I don't want you to be responsible for me because of this. Difui smiled, but his stare was colder. Why are you looking for me? I was worried about your safety. Gushijio blurted. Thank you. Difui smirked. As you can see, I am safe. What else you want? Gushijio was speechless. It was true. Since nothing was wrong, what did she want to do? She was happy to see him alive and probably wanted to spend some time with him. However, based on his current attitude, she could not say this. She was choked for a moment. Difui continued. Don't you want to tell me that you want to stay with me? You are no longer looking for Huang Tu or Celestial Masters Y anymore. It is very likely that all of you are the same person. You are his reincarnation. Gushijio blurted. When she said this sentence, Difui's face really changed. Gushijio, is this the reason you came to me? I am sorry, but I will disappoint you. I am Difui. I am not a substitute for anyone. Chapter 2291. The Devil King 9. Don't try to treat me as another person. I am not interested in the things of the past. I don't believe that I was Huang Tu in my past life. And even if I was, it's over. Difui was fierce. Gushijio felt wronged. She wanted to turn around and leave. However, after searching for him for a year, how could she give up on him just like that? She took a light breath to try to calm down. Are you blaming me? She tried to explain herself again, but she was interrupted by a ruthless Difui. I have given up. Gushijio was stunned. Difui looked at her intensely. The stare that used to be gentle was gone. Gushijio, I have given up on you. Since the day you dumped me in the jungle alone, I have decided to give up on you. Guzijia's face was pale. Why? I am tired. Difui said faintly. It is too tiring to continue chasing a woman who has another man in her heart. I thought I could bear with it, but it turns out that I was wrong. Gushijio, no one can take it. So, at that moment, I chose to let you go. I thought it would be tough, but now it seems to be alright. Without you, I am actually very happy. So, as you said, you walk your path, and I will go on my wooden bridge. We will live separately from each other. Difui leaned back lazily on the edge of the pool. He pulled a certain distance from her before he said, "Please go. This devil world is not somewhere you can stay for long anyway." He was pushing her away. Gushijou bit her lip. At first, she had a lot of things to say to him when she saw him, but now she could not say any of them. The water in the hot spring was hot, but she felt as though she was freezing. Her pretty face was pale as a sheet while her eyes did not leave him. "Do you really mean it?" Difui faintly said. "Do you think I am lying?" Gushijou looked down for a while, and then she giggled. "I don't think that it's true." She had more to say, but felt as if she was choked. After a while she continued, "I never thought we would meet each other again like this." She was very close to him right now. Less than the distance of 2 arms, but it felt like the gap was at least 1,000 miles. Difui no longer looked at her. Instead, he closed his eyes and leaned there. Suddenly she grabbed his wrist. He opened his eyes and frowned slightly. "What are you doing?" he asked while observing her. Gushijou bit her lips but did not speak. The moment she took his wrist, she began to check his pulse. His pulse was normal. In fact, it was quite strong. He was much stronger than when he first came to the Shura world. Therefore, the possibility that he had a hidden sickness that drove him to mistreat her could be ruled out. He was powerful, at least at the level of a high golden immortal. It could be said that his current skill was much better than he was in the upper bound. And it seemed that he still had some skills which she could not sense clearly. Subconsciously she wanted to check further, but he had already withdrawn his wrist. He seemed to chuckle sarcastically. "What are you doing? Do you like to touch me so much?" Chapter 2292. The Devil King 10. Difui paused and drew closer to her again. He was so close that he could blow his breath on her cheek. "Look at you. You seem to have got back your memory, haven't you?" Gushijou did not know anything about medicine when she had amnesia. However, she seemed to be very familiar when she checked his pulse, just like how she used to do when she was in heaven. Gushijou took a deep breath and retreated to keep a distance from him. "Yes, Your Highness." Difui was stunned at first but let out a chuckle. "No wonder you are finally willing to meet me. You finally got your memory back and recalled who I am." Gushijou kept silent with a pale face. She was not looking for him because she got her memory back. However, was it necessary for her to explain further? Gushijou subconsciously looked around and noticed that the pool almost filled the entire room. There were only a small table and a bench beside the pool, with fruits on the table. It seems that Difui was living a very comfortable life and received a lot of respect from the devils. He even met Princess Yuanyuan a while ago. He did not just pamper her, but also spent a lot for her birthday celebration, and gave her a noble status. Besides that, he helped her to get revenge even though she was just upset about something very insignificant. Perhaps he had already let go. Of course, Gushijou did not expect that he could let things go so easily. She was somewhat saddened by the turn of events and almost broke into tears. She took a deep breath and asked the question she had been keeping in her heart for a year. "I can leave now, but can I know what happened 1 year ago?" "1 year ago?" Difui dilated his eyelids and casually replied, "1 year ago, I almost got eaten by the wolves, but Yuanyuan saved my life." "She risked her life?" Gushijou asked. "Yes. She genuinely risked her life for me." Those were the words he said, nothing else. At that time, he almost died from the attacks of a few ferocious wolves. At the time he did not even have the energy to counterattack, and thought that he would just die from being eaten by the beasts. However, Princess Yuanyuan saved his life at just the right time. He was in a coma for a month, and when we awoke he realized that only Yuanyuan was taking care of him. She did so in the Devil Kingdom. Perhaps, Yuanyuan knew that Yin Yanli was trying to kill him. Hence, she decided to bring him to the Devil Kingdom after rescuing him. Unfortunately, she was a fairy, so she had to change her devil-quenching clothes continuously. In fact, she did not bring many, and she was running out of the material after using the 3 that she had. She begged for help from a friend in the Devil Kingdom, and she was given the opportunity to consider transforming her fairy body into a devil body, so that she could stay in the Devil Kingdom. Without hesitation, she decided to transform her body in order to take care of him. It was a torturing process as it was similar to burning a man in a fire. Yuanyuan almost lost her life during the transformation. Yuanyuan was severely injured when Di Fui woke up. Her appearance was disfigured, so she had to use the youth-retaining herb to maintain her normal appearance. Meanwhile, the Devil Kingdom was in a state of chaos. Yuanyuan had to protect herself as well as Di Fui. It was certainly a tough life for her, but she was adamant about enduring. Despite all her hardships to keep him alive, she never asked for anything in return. She never even told him about the struggles she went through just to put food on the table for him. It was only until Di Fui walked out from a firewood store and saw her surrendering herself sexually to a devil physician for a packet of medicine that he realized how she had been helping them get by here. Given Di Fui's nature as the master of the heavenly laws, he could not allow his friends to be treated this way. Back in the old days, he never let anyone go when Mu Feng and Mu Yu got bullied. What more for Yuanyuan, who was his savior? He knew that he had to rebuild himself here and began to conquer the Devil Kingdom and build his empire. After all, Di Fui was an incredibly smart person. Hence, the task would be within his reach. He could even tell that Yin Yanli was after him when they first met in the Shura world. After Di Fui got himself a strong status in the Devil Kingdom, he got Yin Yanli tailed by his spy and finally understood Yin Yanli's plan after a series of investigations and analysis. Di Fui knew that he was targeted by Yin Yanli, and he just could not wait to get him murdered. Yin Yanli would definitely find him. In fact, Yin Yanli's kung fu was much better here compared to the time when he was in heaven. He was as good as a mighty immortal. If they had fought earlier, Di Fui knew that he would not stand a chance. As a result, he could not leave the Devil Kingdom before he established himself. Di Fui knew Yin Yanli quite well, and had to use that knowledge to keep him safe. He knew about Yin Yanli's tracking spell. Therefore, Di Fui also practiced a special spell from the Devil Kingdom, which allowed him to change his aura. For example, the puppet technique. He was extremely aggressive and managed to form his army to take over the power in the Devil Kingdom in just a year. This was a totally clean slate for him, which is why he even tried to let go of Gu Shijio. Although he did not look for her in the past year, he would try to sense her whereabouts when he was free. Coincidentally, he could sense Yin Yanli every single time he tried to connect with her. Besides that, all the spies reported that there was a teenage girl around Yin Yanli every time they saw him. It seemed that both of them enjoyed each other's company. Certainly, Di Fui did not think that Gu Shijio would fall in love with Yin Yanli, as he knew that Celestial Master Zuo was always her beloved. Hence, she only treated Yin Yanli as a friend. Di Fui understood that he was being treated similar to how Gu Shijio treated Yin Yanli. Perhaps, Yin Yanli enjoyed a better treatment as he did not trick her and claimed that he was her fiancé. Yin Yanli probably used the same strategy that he did when they were in heaven. He was always kind to her, so Di Fui knew that he would not hurt her. What surprised him was that she came to the Devil Kingdom for him. The way she appeared was too shocking for him as well. Gu Shijio seemed to have searched for Di Fui for a long time. Unfortunately, before he had the time to feel touched by her action, he understood that Huang Tu was the one she was looking for and not him. He thought that he could open her heart and kick the dead person out of it. Unfortunately, he failed. At that very moment, the water was still bubbling as both of them kept silent in the pool. Although they were physically close to each other, their hearts were far apart. Gu Shijio mumbled as she fixed her gaze on the water. "Do you like Princess Yuanyuan? Would you marry her in the future?" Di Fui paused for a brief moment and then replied icily, "Why are you concerned about this?" Chapter 2293. Departure. His words were sharp enough to piss Gu Shijio off. She tried to suppress her emotions by closing her eyes and taking a deep breath. Then she opened them with a smile and said, "Indeed, I have nothing to do with it, pardon me. I am sorry to bother you. I wish both of you a happy life. Goodbye." She could not stay any longer. Hence, she teleported away. The onsen pool had returned to its natural tranquility, with Di Fui left alone in the water. Her odor seemed to be lingering in the air. However, he knew that she would never come again. Despite being calm about everything earlier, He felt that he had lost all his strength as he stood in the water. After a quick reflection, he decided to let the matter go as he knew that she was not interested in him. Nonetheless, it was still heartbreaking to see her leave. Besides, she was a celestial being, so she could stay for long even if there were enough devil-quenching clothing and youth-retaining herbs for her. The only way was to transform her body, as what Yuanyuan had done. Difui believed that Gu Shijie would leave the Devil Kingdom very soon. Although it was relatively dangerous outside, she probably suited that place better. Gu Shijie teleported too abruptly earlier, and did not plan her route well enough as she was in a hurry to leave. She crashed into a big tree, and then slumped on a big rock. Although she hit her forehead, the only thing she realized was that her eyes were wet. Her vision was getting blurry as she looked at the water on her hand. She was suddenly engulfed by a wave of sadness in her heart, but she did not want to cry as she thought that was only what weak people do. However, she could not hold it in anymore. She lifted her head and looked at the sky. She was hoping that the tears would stop rolling down that way. Unfortunately, it did not work. The tears were like a fountain gushing out from her eyes. In the end, she covered her eyes as she buried her face within her knees. Luckily, she was in a hidden place, so no one witnessed her embarrassing moment. She curled her body at the same spot for an hour, before she finally managed to control her emotions. She slowly raised her head. To her surprise, there was a man in green robes and a colorful butterfly-shaped mask sitting on a tree branch just somewhere nearby. The mask was strange as it only covered his nose and one of his eyes. The other eye was exposed, and it was pretty charming. It made him look as though he was smiling. His lips were juicy and curved upward as well. The man seemed to have been born with an attractive face. He was looking at Gu Shijie as though he was watching a drama. He smiled as their gazes met when Gu Shijie raised her head. "Little girl, were you crying? You look adorable when you cry. You should probably continue crying a while more." His voice was magnetic and alluring. Gu Shijie pursed her lips. There were too many psychopaths in the world, and she believed that many of them were here in the Devil Kingdom. Hence, it was common for her to bump into one. She was too lazy to be bothered by the psychopath in green, and quickly packed her stuff. Her clothes and hair were still wet, so it was indeed embarrassing. She raised her hand and tried to dry herself with a spell, so that she was presentable. The man in green was still watching her when she packed her stuff. He whistled at her. "Little girl, your kung fu is quite good. The fake skin you made looks as genuine as a real one." Gu Shijie was stunned. How did he know that she disguised herself? She was indeed surprised that he could tell, as she was really skillful at hiding her true identity. However, she could not be bothered by the thought at the moment, as she was more concerned about her exact whereabouts. Where had she teleported to? "We are on the outskirts in the south of the city. This is a beautiful place. Are you lost, little girl?" The man leaped off the tree and landed in front of her. He smelled like a bamboo shoot. Gu Shijie distanced herself from him just to be safe. The entire place was surrounded by bamboo trees, but their leaves seemed to have wilted. If the trunks were not thick enough, she would have thought that the bamboos were mutated. Other than the big trees, the place was covered by weeds. How could it be a beautiful place? Gu Shijie was still thinking about Luo Zheng, who was supposed to help her take care of the kid and the silver wolf. She had left them for too long. Perhaps Luo Zheng might even think that she had abandoned them. Since she promised to help the kid find his family, she had to keep her words. Moreover, the kid was adorable. She really liked him. "Little girl, you look pleasant in your original appearance. Why did you disguise yourself?" The bamboo man drew closer to Gu Shijie and looked at her as if he was admiring a piece of art. However, he paused before he finished talking, as the pretty little girl had disappeared in the blink of an eye. He could not believe that someone could ignore his charm and run away. Most importantly, he had not even seen her appearance clearly. Swiftly, the bamboo man took out a fan that was made from goose feathers and started fanning himself like how Zhuge Liang always did. His charming eyes were filled with passionate interest. Gu Shijie found a way to return to the hotel. She left the hotel for less than 2 hours, so she hoped that Luo Zheng would still be waiting for her. To her surprise, she heard about the princess trying to buy the silver wolf. According to the guests, the princess was generous, and she bought the creature for 100,000 devil coins. However, as she did not have sufficient cash, she brought Luo Zheng along. Gu Shijiu frowned. Since she had lived long enough, she could sense something strange. She tried to find Luo Zheng, but could not locate him. She frowned again. There were only two possibilities. 1. Luo Zheng had left the Devil Kingdom. 2. Luo Zheng met with an accident. It was unlikely for Luo Zheng to leave the Devil Kingdom as his devil-quenching clothes could sustain 8 more hours. Hence, it did not make sense if he left hurriedly without returning the kid to her. Thus, did something happen to him? Gu Shijiu took a deep breath and decided to head to the prince's residence. It was huge. Although it was slightly smaller than the residence of the Devil King, it was elegant and luxurious. There were 8 guards at the main entrance, and all of them seemed to be quite good at fighting. The guards immediately greeted Gu Shijiu as soon as she landed at their doorstep. They seemed to be courteous and well-trained. Gu Shijiu went straight to the point without hiding anything. The guard frowned. My master indeed bought a silver wolf and paid the businessman Luo Zheng. He left hurriedly after he got the money, but we have no idea which direction he went. How about the kid? The little kid was Gu Zijia's biggest concern. Kid. We did not see any kid. The guard denied. Gu Shijiu pursed her lips. Did you not see a kid in Luo Zheng's backpack? We did not see any backpack or kid. Gu Shijiu took a deep breath and continued. I am afraid I need to see the prince's female servant who was in charge of the trade. The guard shook his head. Do you think our chief servant would just see anyone? She will not see you. I would suggest you look for Luo Zheng instead. He might have run away since he had got so much money earlier. How much did he get? A big stack of notes. It could be tens of thousands and above. I am not sure about the exact amount. The guard shook his head again. Gu Zijia's heart sank, and there was an upset expression on her face. She did not think it was necessary for her to find Luo Zheng right now. She also suspected that he was probably harmed. Although 100,000 devil coins were considered a big amount for some people, it was just a small amount of money for the princess. Probably just enough to buy a luxury bag. Thinking rationally about the situation, Gu Shijiu believed that the princess generally carried a good reputation in the Devil Kingdom. It seemed unlikely that she would murder someone for 100,000 devil coins. Unless she was after something else that Luo Zheng would not let go. The kid. The origin of the kid was extraordinarily strange. Furthermore, he was being hunted by Yun Yanli a while ago before he came here. Perhaps, the princess discovered something and lured Luo Zheng to her residence. After all, Luo Zheng was just an ordinary businessman. No one would care even if he was murdered. Perhaps, people would just think that he was murdered out of his greed when he tried to escape with the money. If Gu Shijiu was just an ordinary person, she would have focused on looking for Luo Zheng rather than doubting the princess. However, with just a quick analysis, she managed to figure out the storyline. Now all she had to do was verify the situation. Also, she had to find the silver wolf and the kid. She would never think of leaving them in the princess' residence. Gu Shijiu turned around and left. She was looking for a quiet place. When she found it, she quickly teleported into the princess' residence when no one was there. The layout in the residence was elegant as every chamber seemed to have a different design. Besides that, even the plants in the mansion were displayed in special arrays. Anyone who had no knowledge about arrays would fall into the secret traps set in the residence if he or she simply broke into the mansion. In fact, Gu Shijiu was very familiar with the array as she saw Difui make one before. Apparently, the arrays in the mansion were made by Difui. It seemed that he treasured Princess Yuanyuan very much and feared to lose her. The sudden realization made it difficult for Gu Shijiu to breathe. Honestly speaking, she had no idea what she should do with Difui. She tried to put her feelings aside, and thought that she would figure it out only after she resolved the more pressing matters at hand. For instance, she had to find the kid and the silver wolf. It was pretty easy for her to navigate the area because she was an expert in recognizing patterns. Furthermore, she had seen Difui use this array before, so it was a walk in the park. Swiftly, she broke it and entered the mansion as if she were the owner. The area was huge with several pavilions. There were trees and flowers everywhere. The princess house was very grand and gorgeous. There were different scenic views everywhere, which looked like a Jiangnan's courtyard style. The security outside the princess house was very powerful. There were teams of guards who brought Tibetan mastiffs with them as they passed through the courtyards at various intersections. Under such strict defense, even a mosquito could not fly into the house. It seemed that the safety of this princess was more important than the sky. How protective was Di Fui toward the lady? Although the devil world was now ruled by Di Fui, the other rebels were still in the dark and wanted to regain power. In this case, anyone who stayed beside Di Fui was at risk. If someone wanted to threaten him, they would definitely go for his weakness. It seemed that Princess Yuanyuan was his only weakness at this moment. Thus, it was understandable for him to want to protect her. Perhaps he really intended to marry her to return her the grace of saving his life. When it came to the relationship affair between men and women, how many of them could actually sacrifice their lives for one another? Love could not defeat time. Even if he was the reincarnation of Huang Tu, he was now a different man. Similarly, he could be very loving in his current life, but he would forget about it in his next life. Regardless of how loving a couple was in their current life, they would be strangers in the afterlife. Perhaps Gu Zijia's disappointment was self-inflicted after all. It was because she was too obsessed with Huang Tu, and always held on to those memories that she wanted to continue the relationship with him. But now she hurt Di Fui and herself. When she really realized it, it was too late. Perhaps they were destined to miss each other. If he did not fall in love with someone else, she could fight for their relationship again. However, he had a sweetheart now, so why should she go and interrupt them and get embarrassed? It was time for her to let go of her obsession. She shook her head and stopped thinking about the seemingly unnecessary problems that only made her brain hurt. Although the security here was comprehensive, it could not stop Gu Shijio. With her current level of skill, there were only a few places that she could not enter. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. With her current mood, she simply could not enjoy the scenery. Hence, she went to the courtyard where the Princess Yuanyuan lived. She seemed to have found it very quickly. Perhaps she was lucky. The princess was now in her room. Gu Shijio was hidden near to the windows of her bedroom. She could see her dressing up in front of the mirror. Being so close to her, Gu Shijio could clearly admire her beauty. The skin of the princess was fair and smooth like fine porcelain. She looked very alike with Yin Qingluo in the past. Even her character was quite similar. She was always elegant and carried herself well. Her every move was indeed like a princess. Could she be the reincarnation of Yin Qingluo? As Gu Zijia's memories of Yin Qingluo mostly involved Huang Tu, she could not have access to all her thoughts about her. Most of them were vague. She could just remember that Yin Qingluo tried to hurt her out of jealousy. Finally, she killed herself and died quite awfully. Did her acquaintance with Di Fui happen by chance? If she was the reincarnation of Yin Qingluo, would she have any memory of her past life? She used to be the wife of the city owner of Luohua City. If she met Di Fui for the first time, would she be willing to abandon everything, pretended to be dead, and even come into the Devil Kingdom for a stranger? It was impossible. Her intuition told her that this princess was not the type of person to sacrifice everything for a man she barely knew. Which led to her next question. What was the relationship between her and Yin Yanli? There were a lot of doubts in her heart about this princess. However, she had too few clues, so these questions could not be answered. Following her last doubt about the princess, Gu Shijio decided to focus on her again. Her beauty was indeed flawless. It was as if she were a Barbie doll. Gu Shijio could not help but want to touch her face. Having worked tirelessly over the past year, her skills had improved a lot, and in fact, her skin had been fairer than before due to the improvements in her spiritual power. However, there were still some flaws, such as acne on her forehead. Also, the color of her skin was still a little bit dull. Princess Yuanyuan was applying a light red cream to her face. There was a faint medicinal fragrance that circulated her room. With a light sniff, Gu Shijio could recognize the main ingredient for making this cream: youth-retaining herbs. It seemed that she used the herb as a cosmetic. Find authorized novels in Webnovel Faster Updates. Better experience, please click for visiting. A maid suddenly walked in from outside and saluted her. Princess Yuan Yuan. Is it done? Princess Yuan Yuan did not look at the maid but casually asked the question. Rest assured. Everything is done. I didn't expect Luo Zhang to be so sensible. He took less than half of the portion, and even gave the child to us. He has left the devil world, so we do not need to kill him. Has he really? Yes. I followed him personally and watched him leave. Did you manage to get the information of his companion, Hua Shuyue, who is the owner of the Silver Wolf? According to Luo Zhang, he and Hua Shuyue had met each other not long ago. You can rest assured. Since Hua Shuyue is a businesswoman, she should not be a high-ranking person. She left the child and the Silver Wolf and went missing for so long. Perhaps she has gone to see her lover. I heard the doorman say that she came to our house to inquire about the child and wolf, and was rushed away by the doorman. With her ability, she will try to find Luo Zhang to interrogate him. However, Luo Zhang has left the devil world. After he got the 50,000 magic coins, he ran away. It should be challenging for Hua Shuyue to find him. Even if she takes 3 to 5 years, she may not be able to find the man. She naturally cannot come to us to look for trouble too. Well, that is good to know. Princess Yuan Yuan continued to comb her hair. They are among the lowest level people in the outside world. You don't have to worry about them. In fact, I think we should not give a single additional cent to him. After all, these are not his possessions. Princess Yuan Yuan's lips were curved upward. Well, since he is so sensible, just give him a reward. I don't care about these 50,000 devil coins. If she did not give a single cent to Luo Zhang, he may cause her trouble in the future, which could damage her reputation. However, there was no need to explain this to the maid. Yuan Yuan applied a little bit more cream on her face and gently patted it. The maid smiled and said, "The Devil King is pampering you so much. He seems to give you anything you want. Therefore, it is expected that you do not care about these 50,000 devil coins." These words made Princess Yuan Yuan feel happy. She generously gave the half-used cream to the maid. You have done an excellent job in this case. I am very happy, so this cream is a reward for you. The maid's eyes lit up as she accepted the cream in her hand. While she was thanking the princess, she did not forget to flatter her master. Princess, only you can have the capital to use this cream as skincare. This small bottle requires a significant amount of herbs to produce. The Devil King has been very good to you. Princess Yuan Yuan smiled. You talk a lot of nonsense. What I said is the truth. By the way, princess, since it seems that the Devil King really wants to be married to you, when will you accept his proposal? It is not easy to get someone who loves you so much. Although you have to be reserved, don't let the Devil King wait for too long. Chapter 2296. The Secret of the Princess 3. This maid was indeed very talkative. However, after Princess Yuan Yuan heard her last sentence, she frowned. Meanwhile, she accidentally pulled out her hair while combing it. Instead of getting angry, she smiled. I still want to test him. As long as he is sincere, I will. I will fulfill him. Her face blushed faintly as if she was shy and excited. At this moment she looked quite stunning. The maid smiled and said, The Devil King is really sincere to you. I have never seen him being so good to any other woman. His favor is only for you. Yuan Yuan bit her red lips. She smiled and switched the topic. Where is the Silver Wolf? Is it still making noise? Please rest assured. The Silver Wolf is caged in the West Sea Dragon Palace. Where the walls are insulated, no one can hear it. It would not even harm the wolf if it wanted to hit the walls. Princess, although the Silver Wolf is quite smart and able to understand the human language, it is just a wolf. How can it be worth so many coins? I spoke to Guardling earlier, who used to own a silver wolf before. He said it is still a top-graded silver wolf, but is only worth 5,000 devil coins. The maid was trying to convince her that it was a bad deal. Yuan Yuan smiled lightly. You know what? It is not a silver wolf. It is a cub of the mythological beast, Xieji. It looks like a silver wolf because it has not grown yet. This kind of beast is very rare. It could be worth 1,000,000 coins. The maid's eyes lit up. Ah, I see. I didn't expect us to get such a treasure. All this can be attributed to your amazing skill to recognize it. Once we have successfully trained it, it will be a very cool ride. There must be no other person who can compare with you in this Shura world. Yuan smiled peacefully. Maybe this is God's will. Tomorrow is my birthday, and God has given me such a gift. The maid naturally flattered her with a few compliments. Then they talked about the child. The maid asked what was so special with the child. Yuan indulged her a little. The child feels strange to me. It is not like an ordinary human child. It seems that the little Xieji listens to him. Maybe he is the real master of the little Xieji. With the child in our hand, we don't have to worry that we can't train the little Xieji well. Princess, you are so smart. The maid continued flattering her master. Yuan smiled. It seemed like the flattering words of the maid made her very happy. Both of them chatted for a while. Then Princess Yuan ordered the maid to visit the little Xieji to check on it. The maid accepted the instruction and turned and left. She enjoyed the scene of flowers and trees along the way, turned to the backyard courtyard, and traveled to the front of a blue building in the thickest part of the princess residence. There were more than 10 guards in front of the building guarding the iron barrels around here. The maid's identity here was clearly of high status as the guards had to salute her. She was very proud, so she only nodded slightly and asked a guard to open the door before she walked in. After a while, she came out and told the few guards a few words. She ordered them to take care of it well, then turned away. About 15 minutes later, when the guards here were patrolling the area, they suddenly saw Servant Yi come back. The guards wondered what happened. They asked, "Miss Yi, why are you back? Is there any unresolved business?" Servant Yi proudly stood up. "Princess Yuan wants to see this little silver wolf and asked me to bring it over to her." Those guards were not quite suspicious about her. Hence, one of them immediately volunteered. "I will bring it out. No, I will do it personally." Chapter 2297. Salvation. Those guards naturally let her in. The walls in this building were covered with soft leather, while the inside of the soft leather was filled with water. It was very soft. Little Xieji was locked in this room. It was very angry and also very scared. Its limbs were locked with a cold iron chain, and with its current strength, it could not escape. The cold chains would hurt it a little bit when it moved, but it did not hurt its bones. This was a kind of torture tool that was very mild and savvy. The silver wolf could not fall asleep and could not lay down. It could only stand. When it was exhausted, it wanted to collapse and give in, but the pain was worse. If this kind of punishment was used on other beasts, it usually took less than half an hour for them give in. They were forced to recognize the enemy as their master, and establish a contract of the beast as the slave to the enemy. From then on, it would follow the master's instruction and shared the fate of its master. If its master died, it would die too. After little Xieji was locked here, Servant Yi would come and ask it once every half hour. She would ask if it would yield or not. Little Xieji's answer was always to wiggle its nose with scorn. Yes, it did not yield. However, it really suffered. Who would save it? It kept its eyes closed and suffered in silence. Suddenly it seemed to hear something moving and opened its eyes. It saw Servant Yi coming over to it. It snorted and closed its eyes again. That damn woman. If it were not chained, it would definitely rush to kill her. Although its eyes were closed, its keen pair of ears were still functioning. It heard the woman's footsteps approaching, getting closer and closer. After a while, it suddenly shrugged its small black nose and opened its eyes. It stared at Servant Yi, who was approaching. Suddenly, the hairs along its entire body were erected nervously. "Little Silver." The woman stopped in front of it and spoke softly. The voice was very familiar. Little Xieji's eyes were filled with tears immediately. Desperately, it wanted to lick her with its tongue. The person who it had been waiting for was finally here. She was here to come and save it. Out of excitement, it subconsciously moved its body. Unfortunately, it touched the cold chain, and it screamed because it hurt so much. Its entire body trembled. "Good boy. Don't move." This woman was Gu Shijio, who had disguised her appearance. She listened near the window of the princess room for a long time, and she learned a lot of things. Then she secretly followed Servant Yi here. After Servant Yi left, Gu Shijio disguised into Servant Yi and came to save little Xieji. She did not expect little Xieji to suffer this kind of torture here. She did feel sad for the creature. There was also anger at the bottom of her eyes. It was not too unethical for Princess Yuanyuan to buy little Xieji. After all, Gu Shijio made up a story and put a price on little Xieji. Luozheng could also easily justify selling it. However, the fact that she actually tortured it like this was not tolerable. From now on, Gu Shijio would not allow anyone to torture it. After little Xieji recognized her, it began to tear and looked at her with a gaze. Although the cold iron chain on it was a very complicated mechanism, for Gu Shijio, this was no different from a common lock mechanism. It could be opened in a few minutes. She also lightly applied a powerful remedy to its wounds. After a while, the bleeding stopped, and the pain was gone too. Little Xieji looked at Gu Shijio thankfully. Its tail shook vigorously. Chapter 2298. Salvation. 2. Gu Shijio rubbed the soft hair on its head and asked, "What about your little master? Do you know where he is?" Little Xieji nodded. Gu Shijio heaved a sigh of relief. "Very good. Take me to him." Little Xieji nodded again and kissed her palm with its tongue. Gu Shijio patted its head. "When you exit the place with me, don't be too close to me. You have to pretend like you were forced to give in. Do you understand?" Its little eyes blinked. It tried to raise its head and looked at Gu Shijio. It then pretended to be with Gu Shijio unwillingly. Gu Shijio shook her head. "No, this is too arrogant. You do not look like you have given in." Little Xieji was quite confused and scratched its head with its claws. It made several attempts in succession, all of which were rejected by Gu Shijio. It then lost confidence and started to tear. Little Xieji was disappointed that it could not act. Gu Shijio thought about it and finally found a solution. "You will treat me as the real Servant Yi. You have to succumb to her." "What would that look like?" Little Xieji immediately snorted angrily. It showed its small fangs that just grew out, then clamped its tail. It looked dejected and walked a few steps around Gu Shijio. While walking, it occasionally stared at Gu Shijio angrily. Gu Shijio then turned and took it out. When they stepped out the door, the guards naturally inquired about it. Gu Shijio answered casually, "It has already been succumbed to be used by our princess. I will take it to see the princess now." Those guards looked at Gu Shijio and looked at the dejected little Xieji. He did not look suspicious, so they just waved and let her go. After it was free, little Xieji immediately took Gu Shijio to the little baby, by tracing his breath. They walked all the way to the end of the princess house. Gu Shijio was still somewhat puzzled. Since the princess had already gotten the kid, she was supposed to treasure him. Why did she not ask people to cage him in the courtyard near her? Instead, they seemed to send him to a remote place. After all, the few yards around her were supposed to have the highest security. For instance, the place that caged little Xieji was the place located 3 courtyards away from the main house. If there was anything unusual, she could easily hear it. It just did not add up at first. However, this doubt was quickly solved. Before Gu Shijio reached the last courtyard, she heard a burst of crying. The crying was high in tune. Sometimes the crying was sharp. Sometimes it was high-pitched. It even sounded fierce sometimes. It was as though it could drill through one's brain and sting their ears. The courtyard was very remote, with only 2 maids guarding at the door. The 2 maids frowned and felt lifeless. Gu Shijio was still in the appearance of the maid, swaying around with little Xieji. The maids at the door were apparently not in a high position. They quickly saluted her. Gu Shijio raised her chin slightly. Why is he still crying? The 2 maids almost wanted to break down in tears. "Sister Yi, this little kid has been crying non-stop, and still hasn't taken a break." They almost became deaf. Gu Shijio asked again, "Why did you not entertain him?" "Oh, it is useless." This little kid closed his eyes and cried. Gu Shijio nodded in acknowledgement. "I am going in. You can take a break." The two maids could not wait for this message. They answered, turned around and ran. They were faster than rabbits. Gu Shijie then dashed inside while little Xiaji was busy keeping up. Chapter 2299, Salvation 3. The interior of the house was quite bright, and a woman was holding the baby while sweating profusely. Meanwhile, the kid cried like a donkey. His small face was red as an apple. Apparently, he cried very hard. When she saw Gu Shijie come in, the woman saluted her. "Did you dare abuse him? Why is he crying this way?" The woman kneeled. "No. I have been treating him very well. I would not dare to abuse him." "Is he hungry?" "He doesn't want to drink any milk." The woman wanted to cry. "I have found him the best nurse in the city. We have given him sufficient milk, but he still closed his eyes and was not willing to drink it. I tried feeding him forcibly, but was unsuccessful." Gu Shijie looked at the little doll. The little doll still cried with his small mouth, but his eyes focused on Gu Shijie now. As their eyes met each other's, the little doll's eyelashes curved upward as if he was smiling. Of course, his smile disappeared very quickly, but the two small hands reached out to her as if he was asking for a hug. Gu Shijie understood it. This little doll did it deliberately. He deliberately cried out loud to make the princess annoyed. This was the only way he could be brought to such a remote place. His crying was also convenient for those who wanted to come and save him, as it was easy to find him with his loud cries. To think that such a little infant was able to use such a tactic, one surely wondered who his parents were. Gu Shijie suddenly envied the mother of this little kid. Who wouldn't be happy to have such a smart baby? Gu Shijie reached out and said, "I will hug him and try." That woman was shocked. Servant Yi had always hated children. Whenever she heard kids crying, she would get mad. What was wrong this time? "Miss Yi, this child is very naughty. I am afraid that he will annoy you." Gu Shijie did not respond. The kid suddenly waved his arm and slammed his hand on the woman's face. That woman was stunned, and at that point, Gu Shijie had taken the child over into her embrace. It's strange to say that the little doll just stopped crying when he was in Gu Zijie's arms. He looked at Gu Shijie with a pair of big round eyes and was extremely adorable. That woman sighed in relief. "I didn't expect this kid to like you." Gu Shijie waved her hand. "Make your way out. I will observe this child." The woman was naturally happy to leave this hot potato temporarily. She agreed and went out right away. "Hey, you are finally here. My voice is going to be hoarse tomorrow." The relieved little boy spoke frankly. Gu Shijie raised her eyebrows. "How did you know that I will come? You can't bear to leave me." The little doll's head arched into her arms as he tried to get pampered. "Why would I? You are no one to me." The little doll blinked. "You are my mother." Gu Shijie was stunned, and she almost threw the little doll out of her arms. "Nonsense." Gu Shijie almost wanted to knock his head. "I am not married. When would I have delivered you?" She was a woman, so how could she not know if she had ever had a child? She had not lost her memory again, had she? The little guy lied. However, at this time, Gu Shijie was too lazy to argue with him. She must take the two out first. Gu Shijie held the little doll in one hand and picked up little Xiaji from the ground. In an instant, she teleported them to safety. Her calculations were still very accurate. So she wanted to steer them to the east, where she prepared a vehicle so that they could leave the town. Chapter 2300. Breakout. Unfortunately, when Gu Shijie opened her eyes, she found herself in a vast wilderness with a few bamboo-like trees around her. A green bamboo-like man was lying on a tree and looking at her with a pair of watery eyes. Gu Shijie was stunned. Was there a unique setting in this devil world? She had teleported from the devil palace and the princess house, and always seemed to come here. "Miss, we are fated to meet again." The man jumped down from the tree and landed right in front of Gu Shijie. Gu Shijie frowned. She was still in the appearance of Servant Yi. When this coquettish man said this sentence, was it because he knew Servant Yi? Or had he recognized her as Gu Shijie? She did not want to cause a scene, so she just nodded slightly and pulled the two little guys and wanted to teleport again. "Miss," The last time I saw you, you still cried hard. This time you are here with a child. Were you crying before because the child was lost? Hey, you actually conquered a siege. Miss, you are really strong. This coquettish man gave her a thumbs up. Gu Shizhou almost wanted to vomit. This bastard could not only see her through her facial disguise technique, but he could also see her original appearance. Otherwise, he would be able to recognize the two different persons as the same person. He could even recognize Xie at a glance. Who was this coquettish man? Why was he here? She met him twice in such a brief period. While Gu Shizhou was still stunned, the man had turned around her 3 times. The little doll looked at him full of awareness, and his eyes followed him closely. Is this little doll your child? Well, he does look like you. The man's eyes were like a searchlight, sweeping through the little doll. Obviously, he was mistaken, but Gu Zijia thought that she should try not to provoke such a strange person. Instead, Gu Shizhou took a step back and teleported again. However, this time, she did not manage to teleport away. She almost crashed into a bamboo tree. Little Xieji's mouth almost poked the trunk. It was hurt, and it actually rolled out from Gu Zijia's hand and fell to the ground. Gu Shizhou tried to regain her stability. She looked at the bamboo-robed man and asked, "What do you want?" The bamboo-robed man smiled and patted his robes. "I have let you run away once. I have to be careful this time. You broke into my sight twice. If I let you go like this, it will damage my reputation." "What do you want?" "Your ability to disguise into any appearance is excellent. Why don't you teach me as a form of compensation? Treat it as a toll payment for passage of your journey." Gu Shizhou was speechless. "It's fine if you can't teach me. There haven't been many people to come here for a long time. I am very lonely. Why don't you stay here for 3 days, chat with me, and drink together with me?" Gu Shizhou blinked her eyes and bit her lips. "I wish I can promise you the second condition, but you know that I am an outsider. I can't stay too long in the devil world. Therefore, I cannot fulfill your condition. As to the first condition, my facial disguise technique is extremely complicated. Even if you are very smart, you will need 4 to 5 days to understand the fundamental skill. Thus, I can't help you with that either. I'm sorry." The bamboo-robed man had a very high skill. He was at least at the level above a golden immortal. Moreover, his ability was extraordinary, and was in Gu Zijia's best interest not to provoke him. Chapter 2301, Breakout, 2. The bamboo-robed man's eyes flashed. He looked up and down at her, and suddenly he responded, "Miss, you have 2 sets of clothes on your body, so you can stay for another day. If you want to stay, I can help to upgrade your attire, which will allow you to stay in the devil world for another 10 days. With 2 pieces you could be here for 20 days. It will be enough for you to stay and teach me the facial disguise technique." Gu Zijia's heart moved. She had no idea that her attire could be upgraded. She had intended to leave immediately, but when she heard the bamboo-robed man's suggestion, she decided to change her mind. "My facial disguise technique is a very secretive skill. I don't usually teach it to people. If you really want to learn, I can teach you, but you need to teach me a skill in return." The bamboo-robed man smiled. "Miss, you are so daring. You dare to talk to me about conditions." Gu Shizhou chuckled. "I like to buy and sell fairly and never cheat. I know that you can force me to stay with your efforts, but you can't force me to teach you the skill. Even if you torture me, it is useless." The bamboo-robed man remained silent. Frustrated, he let out a long sigh. "I have always treated ladies well. How can I be cruel to such a pretty and petite lady? Nevertheless, I will not be threatened by anyone. It seems that if I want to let you stay willingly, I can only use the less humane method." Just as he finished speaking, his hand suddenly stretched out toward Gu Shizhou. Strangely, it appeared to be 1 foot longer than before. The man wanted to grab the kid in Gu Zijia's arm. Apparently, he wanted to take the child as a hostage. Gu Shizhou was initially not too far away from him. Furthermore, since he would have caught her off guard, he thought that he would be able to catch the kid. However, he did not expect that before his palms arrived, Gu Shizhou suddenly disappeared. In the end, he did not catch anything. When he looked up again, He saw Gu Shizhou standing nearby with the cheeky smile. If you want to learn my skill, teach me how to upgrade the clothes. Otherwise, you will not get anything. While she spoke, her fingertips seemed to emit white light. The wizardry barrier in the air was instantly torn apart. The next moment she had disappeared. The bamboo-robed man was speechless. Even when he was prepared, she could escape. Her trick of breaking the wizardry barrier was good. She could actually break his barrier in such a short time. Hence, the man knew that this girl was very smart. It was the first time he met such an interesting girl. He was certainly captivated. In a second he disappeared too. Her teleportation was very precise this time, and she headed directly to the east of the city. She even saw the vehicle that she had booked. However, when she approached the vehicle, she realized that something was wrong. The driver seemed different from the one she hired. She was stunned for a while, and when she was about to teleport again, a big net flashed out of the air and was about to capture her. When Gu Shizhou saw the big net, her heart ached. It was the universe net, a portable instrument that Di Fui possessed. She had seen him used it once before. It was beyond her expectation that the next time she saw the net, it would be used on her. Although she was not covered by the big net, she was swept away by the left corner of the big net, and it hurt her very badly. To make matters worse, the child who was in her left arm fell to the ground when her left hand was hurt, and was covered by the big net. Chapter 2302, Breakout 3. Subconsciously, Gu Shizhou wanted to pull the big net. However, before her fingertips had touched it, the net was pulled up firmly and disappeared in the air. The last thing Gu Shizhou noticed was the baby's cries. Gu Zijia's facial expression changed abruptly. The universe net was a terrifying instrument. It would tighten when its victim struggled. There was even a spike-like mechanism in the net, so no matter who was caught in it, they would be hurt. Hao-Er was still so young, how could he bear the pain? Gu Shizhou had problems of her own now as there were more than 10 people around her in the dark at that moment. The group surrounded Gu Shizhou. The woman who headed the troop was Servant Yi. Her pretty face was fierce. She lifted her fingers and shouted, "Such a bold evil girl. You actually dared to pretend to be me, and entered into Princess' house to steal her treasures. Did you know that it is a sin?" Gu Shizhou ignored her. "Let the child go." There was a flash of light all of a sudden, and a woman in a white dress and white veil suddenly appeared. She had a curvy body shape with some of her hair tied up. It was Princess Yuan. She looked down at Gu Shizhou and said coldly, "Who are you? How dare are you to come to my house to steal?" Princess Yuan did not have the net in her hand. Apparently, she already hid the child. It seemed that today was going to be a difficult day unless Gu Shizhou abandoned the kid. She knew that some of the troops here were weaker than the others. Perhaps she could escape if she chose the right direction. Among them were 4 guards with high skills. They were much stronger than Gu Shizhou. When Gu Shizhou went into the Devil Palace, she saw them while she was hiding in the dark. They should be the guards who were usually around Di Fui. It seemed that they were seconded by the princess. She knew that she would not be able to win in a physical fight. So she could only rely on strategy and tactics to engineer her escape. Gu Zijia's mind worked very quickly, and she had already analyzed the situation in the blink of an eye. Seeing that the guards had surrounded her, Gu Shizhou raised her head and whistled very loudly. The sound was clear and loud, so much so that it could crack a stone. The whole area actually tremored slightly. Sunset had just fallen over the place while twilight had not risen. Although the east of the city was a relatively remote place, there were still pedestrians passing by. Her whistle already alerted 7 or 8 pedestrians, and shocked a large number of families in the east of the city. People heard the sounds and started to rush out. In just a moment, the place had been surrounded by 50 to 60 people. The number kept increasing. Princess Yuan slightly frowned. However, Servant Yi seemed to be smug. She shouted, "The princess is here to catch a thief who entered her house to steal from her. You do not have to panic." After she spoke, many eyes turned to Gu Shizhou. She did not look like a thief at all. Even though she had removed the makeup she used to disguise herself as Servant Yi, She was carrying the look she used for the Huaxuyue persona. She raised her head slightly and smiled coldly. This is strange, what have I stolen? You have stolen the little Xieji. Servant Yi voiced sharply. Are you sure? Yes. I am certain. Gu Shijio smiled coldly. Hilarious. It is my favorite beast. When did it become yours? She patted little Xieji's head. Good boy, identify your master. Did you come from the princess house? Little Xieji immediately shook its head. Are you my pet? Little Xieji nodded continuously. It also licked the back of Gu Zijia's hand with its tongue. Everyone remained silent. Even a blind man could tell who was the rightful owner of this little Xieji. Chapter 2303 Breakout 4. Under the watchful eyes of the villagers, Princess Yuanyuan could not order for its capture. She stared at Servant Yi and hinted at her. Servant Yi was clever enough to understand it. She looked at Gu Shijio and seemed to understand something. She sharply said, This little Xieji was bought by the princess in the restaurant during at lunch from a guy named Luo Zheng. It was witnessed by many people in the restaurant. Although this little Xieji used to be owned by you, it had now sold, and it is not yours anymore. What is the reason for you to steal it? Is it a trap set between you and the man named Luo Zheng to cheat the princess? Princess Yuanyuan sighed. I really like this little Xieji and spent 100,000 devil coins to buy it. It was a fair trade, and I did not take advantage of the seller. If it was a small amount, I wouldn't mind being cheated by you. In fact, I would give it to you as a donation. However, the 100,000 devil coins I used was given to me by the Devil King for my birthday. How can I allow it to be stolen by you? Please give us back the little Xieji. Our princess will show you mercy and spare your life. The other servants also stared at Gu Shijio scornfully. Princess Yuanyuan was obviously prepared. They turned the situation upside down and pushed the blame on Gu Shijio. The fact that Princess Yuanyuan spent 100,000 devil coins to buy the silver wolf at noon was known by a lot of people, so everyone nodded to agree. The situation was extremely unfavorable to Gu Xijio. Luo Zheng had left the Devil Kingdom, so he naturally could not testify for her. Thus there were many witnesses on the side of the princess. In order to prove her statement, the princess also ordered a maid to go and invite the owner of the restaurant to testify. Due to the popularity of Princess Yuanyuan, it was easy for her to convince the crowd with just her words alone. What more could Gu Shijio expect from the situation now that there were even witnesses on her side? Needless to say, the crowd looked at Gu Shijio as a deceitful liar. What a liar! How can you lie to our princess? Yes, it's too shameful. She must be in partnership with Luo Zheng. Catch her. Burn her. We hate liars the most here. Yes. Burn her as a warning to others. The crowd was getting bigger by the minute. In just a brief moment, hundreds of people had gathered in the area. People were filled with indignation and were yelling at Gu Shijio. What's more, there were people who had already begun to pull up their sleeves and get physical. Little Xieji realized that the situation was not favorable. It understood the trick used by the princess. It was so angry that its silver hair was erected like a little lion. It wanted to defend Gu Shijio so badly, but unfortunately it could not say anything. Although Princess Yuanyuan did not display her emotion on her face, she was smug. When she found out that little Xieji and the child were stolen, she questioned the caregivers and guessed the identity of the thief. After all, in this world, there were not many people who could break the enchanted barrier outside the house of the princess. In addition, her suspect had the ability to disguise herself. Thus, with the wisdom of Princess Yuanyuan, she could easily guess that this person was Gu Shijio. It was easier for her to arrange to capture a specified target. Having borrowed magical tools from the Devil Palace, her original plan was to use the universal net to quickly catch Gu Shijio, and then execute her on the spot to get rid of her. Besides, she had a reason to catch her, and no one would disagree with executing someone who stole. Even if Di Fui learns about the situation, he would not be able to do anything by then. Chapter 2304, Breakout 5. Although Princess Yuanyuan did not expect Gu Shijie to scream to attract a crowd, she had turned things in her favor in public and had more reasons to kill her now. She could use these witnesses to defend herself if Di Fui found out about it. It was her priority to get rid of Gu Shijie as quickly as possible. Take her down. Her servants were just waiting for her instruction. They shouted and rushed over once they heard it. Gu Zijie's eyes narrowed. Abruptly, she pulled little Xieji and swiftly moved about 100 feet from her previous location. Princess Yuanyuan was shocked and thought she was going to escape. Fortunately, she managed to locate her and secretly breathed a sigh of relief. If Gu Shijie had not attracted such a crowd, Princess Yuanyuan could have used the safety of the child to threaten her. But in the eyes of the public, she did not want to destroy her reputation by holding a child as a hostage. Hence, she had to scrap that plan. Nonetheless, because she was cautious of Gu Zijie's teleportation ability, she still took a few steps closer to the infant just to check on it. What Princess Yuanyuan did not expect was that Gu Shijie, who has been surrounded by various weapons, actually ignored the danger and suddenly moved nearer to the princess. She unsheathed her sword and aimed it at an area close to the princess. Princess Yuanyuan was certainly surprised by her attack and subconsciously wanted to block it. However, the other party was too fast, and she could not stop it. She just heard a loud blow as though a giant balloon had burst. There was a momentary flash of gold light, and a small area of an enchanted barrier ruptured. It revealed the big net inside it along with a child who was stuck in the net. At this point, Gu Shijie was completely focused on retrieving the child to safety. She managed to get her hands on the baby. However, she was unable to escape the sword that stabbed her from the back. It was Princess Yuanyuan's. The sword was like a poisonous snake that headed straight into Gu Zijie's left rib. Gu Zijie's face was instantly pale. The swordsmanship of Princess Yuanyuan was quite alike with China's 1-point-to-bleed skill. Although there would not be a lot of bleeding, it was 10 times more painful than a normal sword wound. It hurt her so much that she almost fell to her knees. Even though she was in significant pain, a sudden thought came to her mind. While falling, she quickly turned around, and the sword in her palm was directed to Princess Yuanyuan's neck. After all, Gu Shijie used to be a killer. Her estimations were typically accurate and precise. Despite being seriously injured by Princess Yuanyuan, Gu Shijie now had the opportunity to cut off her head. All things considered, it would be a win for her. What she did not see coming was that when her sword was about to cut into the delicate neck of the princess, a white light suddenly flashed, and a silk thread wrapped around her sword, preventing it from moving forward even an inch. It seemed that Princess Yuanyuan had cheated death. She quickly leaped 2 feet away and shouted in a trembling voice, "Brother!" Gu Shijie managed to witness the power of the silk thread. It had actually stopped her sword and even hurt her palm. She could barely hold her sword well. She took the net with one hand and used the sword to support her body with the other. Then, she looked up and saw a figure in the distance. This person had black hair and wore a mask. It was certainly a compelling sight. It was Di Fui, the current Devil King. Chapter 2305. Breakout. 6. Gu Zijie's heart felt as if a sharp knife was stabbing it. In utter disappointment, she closed her eyes slightly. He really came just in time to rescue Yuanyuan. Yuanyuan was smiling at first, but her heart suddenly stopped. She had heard from the maid who borrowed his magic weapon that the Devil King had sent a notice out in the afternoon that he was going to meditate for 18 hours, and that no one should disturb him during this time. It had only been 4 hours since that message, but he was here. The other servants and the crowd had all kneeled. All hail the Devil King. Di Fui only nodded slightly at their gesture. His glare easily made someone feel as though they were in an ice tub. The people present were all too afraid even to move. Di Fui's eyes certainly swept past Gu Shijie, but he did not stop at all. Gu Shijie bit her lips and did not look at him again. Since he had come, he would definitely prevent her from hurting Yuanyuan. Hence, her anger at being stabbed by Yuanyuan's sword could not be avenged for the time being. She ignored the pain of the injury under her rib, and looked down at the little baby in the net. As the net was very tight, and the little baby was wrapped tightly in it, like a cockroach. In the dense net, she could barely see the face of the little one. He did not cry or scream, and seemed to be asleep. Had he died because of the pain? Gu Shijie quickly examined if he was breathing, and fortunately, the little baby was alive. Perhaps he actually fell asleep. She felt somewhat relieved given the circumstances. It was good that the child was fine. This universal net could not be released at the moment, so she just put it aside first. Gu Shijie was suffering from massive pain in her ribs, but she stood up straight because she knew that it was not the time to look weak. She still had a hard fight, and did not have time to heal herself. She knew that he recognized her. After all, when she was looking for him, she was in this appearance. He said that he wanted to be separated with her, and that he already had another sweetheart. Now, she even encountered a big conflict with his favorite sister. She had mentally prepared herself that he was going to be biased toward his sister. Hence, she had to be strong. What is going on? Di Fui finally opened his mouth and looked at Princess Yuanyuan. Princess Yuanyuan seemed to be frightened. Her face was pale as she tried to explain the incident. She started by telling Di Fui how she had bought the silver wolf for 100,000 devil coins. Was she trying to tell him that Gu Shijie and Luo Zheng partnered up to cheat her? And after that, they sneaked into her house to steal the silver wolf? At the moment, the owner of the restaurant had arrived, and he had testified for the purchase of the silver wolf by Yuanyuan. The person who dared to deceive the sister of Devil King was now hated by the entire crowd. The onlookers all called for the swindler to be executed. Di Fui raised his hand and requested for silence. He finally looked at Gu Shijie and asked, "What do you have to say?" Gu Shijie chuckled. "Princess Yuanyuan is really good at telling a story. Little Xieji is my favorite pet, and I have never thought of selling it. I had something to do at noon, so I requested Luo Zheng to help me to take care of it. I didn't expect it to be bought by the princess during this period." Servant Yi interrupted her. "No matter what relationship you have with Luo Zheng, it's true that the princess bought the little silver wolf. Since the deal had been done, it means that this little silver wolf belongs to our princess. You came and took it away from her house, and that is considered stealing." The crowd also agreed with her statement. Gu Shijie sneered. "Did Luo Zheng tell you that little Xieji was not owned by him? Did he tell you that I, Hua Shiyue, owned it before he sold it to you?" Servant Yi was stunned and tried to argue. "Since he is your companion, he has the right to decide for you. Not to mention that you also told him the price. As long as it is sold at the price you said, there is no difference whether it is sold by him or you." This statement was not entirely convincing. Therefore, some people agreed with her, but some hesitated. Chapter 2306, Breakout 7. "Brother, do you think her action is considered a theft? The Xieji one should belong to me, right?" Princess Yuanyuan looked at Di Fui with a pitiful gaze. She would have tugged the edge of his sleeve if she could. Di Fui took a glimpse at Gu Shijie and noticed that she was standing still. It was evident that she refused to compromise. The odds were not in her favor at this moment since she picked a fight with the princess of the Devil Kingdom. Since Gu Shijie was just a foreign ordinary person in the Devil Kingdom, why would the people speak for her? Was she insane to continue? Perhaps, she thought that Di Fui would speak for her because of their relationship in the past? Furthermore, he was the Devil King, so anything he said would be followed. Di Fui took another glance at her, but she did not look back at him. She probably only looked at him once since he arrived. It seemed that she did not intend to ask for his help this time. He was somewhat upset by this and responded icily, "Since the animal was sold, it should belong to the buyer." Yuanyuan's eyes sparkled as she looked at Gu Shijie arrogantly. Finally, Gu Shijie raised her head and stared at Di Fui. Her lips were slightly curved upward, as if she was going to say something sarcastic. It also made it look like she knew that he would side with her, and was simply waiting for the confirmation. Her facial expression made Di Fui uneasy. He clenched his fists inside his sleeves. Meanwhile, Yuanyuan quickly took the opportunity to add to Gu Zijie's misery. "Did you hear that? Our king is always fair. So what do you have to say for yourself? Give me back the little Xieji. We shall then decide what punishment you should receive for breaking into my residence." She raised her hand to instruct the guards to catch the siège. The little siège was busily biting the universal net to free its little master. It got frightened as it heard Princess Yuanyuan's orders, and then immediately ran toward Gu Shijio and hid behind her. Gu Shijio lowered her head in disappointment, but she was certainly not surprised that he would side with Princess Yuanyuan. After all, she was his savior, his godsister, and his lover. Nevertheless, she could not deny that it hurt. The bigger her hope, the larger the disappointment. Alas, Di Fui looked at her facial expression again while the guards were slowly approaching the creature. She looked pale, but somehow he could sense a hint of sarcasm behind her smile. Di Fui's heart ached at the sight of what he was doing to her. Suddenly, he twisted his earlier statement. However, what Hua Shiyue said was not absolutely unreasonable. After all, she owned the creature, so it makes sense for her to look for it, especially since she was not the person who sold it. So I propose that we do not have any punishment on Gu Shijio for breaking into the princess residence. Also, she can keep the siège, but she has to pay 100,000 devil coins to the princess. If she does not want the siège, then I will pay an extra 50,000 devil coins to her as compensation. What do you think? All the devils applauded when he proposed that solution, and could not stop praising the Devil King for being a fair person. Of course, some thought that he showed too much mercy to Hua Shiyue. They strongly felt that Hua Shiyue should kowtow to the Devil King. Otherwise, she would be considered as very ungrateful. Princess Yuanyuan was rather bitter about the turn of events. In fact, she wanted to get this matter resolved as soon as Di Fui arrived so as to reduce the interaction between the two of them, so that they would not recognize each other, and get back together. She did not know that Gu Shijio and Di Fui had met privately, and that they recognized each other despite the disguise on Gu Zijia's face. Di Fui's solution seemed to favor the princess still. Hence, she was quite happy to do a favor for Gu Shijio. With pursed lips, she said, "Although this is too easy on her, I am not a calculative person. Brother, I will take your advice. However, I do not wish for you to spend so much money. I will pay for it." She sounded very understanding. Hence, the devils continuously cheered for her generosity. After that, everyone shifted their gaze to Gu Shijio in anticipation of her response. Gu Shijio felt like laughing all of a sudden. It seemed that he did show her some mercy after all. At least he did not arrest her and send her to jail. She should probably thank him. She smiled and clapped her hands, adding to the applause. She added, "This king is indeed a fair person. Thank you so much." She bowed to thank him. Di Fui could not utter a word, but he felt as if a needle was poking his heart. His heart sank when his gaze finally returned to her face. He knew that Gu Shijio had a fantastic technique to disguise herself, with the intention to achieve a better result. Her skin complexion looked the same as her original one. At that moment, it was incredibly pale. Di Fui did not look at Gu Shijio properly since he arrived as he was afraid to be emotionally distracted. Perhaps he only took a few quick glances at her. Hence, he did not notice her real complexion. Was she injured? Or did she disguise herself like that on purpose? He finally took a step forward and said, "You." However, Gu Shijio took a step back to keep a distance from him. Smilingly, she added, "If this is the truth, it is very reasonable for the Devil King to finalize this matter this way. Unfortunately, things are not that simple. I am afraid that I cannot compromise." Di Fui seemed to be a little surprised as she took a blue talisman out. "I guess the Devil King can recognize this talisman, right?" Gu Shijio asked. "It is an audio talisman," Di Fui said with a deep voice. Gu Shijio nodded. "You are right. Things will be slightly easier since Devil King recognizes this object. This is the conversation I heard today at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It is quite interesting. Let's continue our discussion after listening to it together." Instantly, Yuanyuan's complexion changed. 3 o'clock was the time she was having a discussion with Servant Yi. She certainly did not want anyone to hear that conversation, especially Di Fui. She immediately rushed forward with the intention to grab the audio talisman from Gu Shijio. Why is this important now? Let's get the matter of siège resolved first. Gu Shijie was well prepared and avoided the princess. She then chuckled sarcastically. Do you feel guilty and scared, princess? Do not worry. This is also about the little Xieji. We are still talking about Xieji. Swiftly, she switched on the audio talisman. A conversation between a master and a servant was clearly heard. Is it done? Rest assured. Everything is done. I didn't expect Luo Zhang to be so sensible. He took less than half of the portion, and even gave the child to us. He has left the devil world, so we do not need to kill him. Chapter 2307. Whose child? Did you manage to get the information of his companion, Hua Shiyue, who is the owner of the Silver Wolf? According to Luo Zhang, he and Hua Shiyue had met each other not long ago. You can rest assured. Since Hua Shiyue is a businesswoman, she should not be a high-ranking person. She left the child and the Silver Wolf, and went missing for so long. Perhaps she has gone to see her lover. I heard the doorman say that she came to our house to inquire about the child and wolf, and was rushed away by the doorman. With her ability, she will try to find Luo Zhang to interrogate him. However, Luo Zhang has left the devil world. After he got the 50,000 magic coins, he ran away. It should be challenging for Hua Shiyue to find him. Even if she takes 3 to 5 years, she may not be able to find the man. She naturally cannot come to us to look for trouble too. Well, that is good to know. Princess Yuanyuan continued to comb her hair. They are among the lowest level people in the outside world. You don't have to worry about them. In fact, I think we should not give a single additional cent to him. After all, these are not his possessions. Princess Yuanyuan's lips were curved upward. Well, since he is so sensible, just give him a reward. I don't care about these 50,000 devil coins. The dialogue in the voice recorder spell could be heard by everyone, and repeated the conversation between Princess Yuanyuan and Servant Yi. Every sentence was clear. The crowd naturally went speechless. These conversations were the proof she needed. It proved that after this pair, master and servant, had their eyes on the Silver Wolf, and bought it forcibly. They also wanted to kill Luo Zhang so that the original owner of the Silver Wolf, Hua Shiyue, would not find them. It also proved that the allegation that Princess Yuanyuan imposed on Gu Shijie was completely false. The statement that she and Luo Zhang colluded with each other to deceive Princess Yuanyuan was simply nonsense. Obviously, they were the ones who schemed on Gu Shijie. Countless eyes stared blankly at Princess Yuanyuan and her servant. Although many bad things had happened in the Devil Kingdom, the princess seemed to always carry a positive image. However, that seemed to have collapsed in an instant. Fake. It is fake. This is not true. She imitated their voices to deceive us. Princess Yuanyuan's beautiful face had turned pale. She never imagined that there was such a trump card. She was certainly not prepared for it. No wonder Gu Shijie screamed earlier to gather a crowd. She was waiting for this moment. This girl was really good at scheming, and the princess actually took the bait. She wanted to grab the voice recorder spell and destroy it, but Di Fui was standing there. If she went to snatch it, it would make her appear to be guilty. Therefore, she made up her mind to simply refuse to admit it. She claimed that the other party was making trouble, and faked the voice recorder spell. Brother, she deliberately faked it and accused me. Brother, you have to help me. Yuanyuan was nervous and wanted to pull Di Fui's sleeve to beg him. As expected, she failed to touch him. Di Fui just took a step back and avoided her hand. She still could not really get close to him. She flashed a sight of resentment in her eyes, and then looked at Di Fui with tears and a pitiful look. Gu Shijie smirked. Fake. She then looked at Di Fui. I remember that the Devil King has the skill to distinguish between real and fake spells. You can check if the sound in this voice recorder spell is genuine or fake. She lifted her hand and threw the spell to Di Fui. Di Fui could only accept it. Gu Shi smiled again. Princess Yuanyuan, the Devil King is the brother who loves you the most. He will only favor you. He will not even accuse you. Thus, the result of his identification must be true, right? Princess Yuanyuan remained silent. She couldn't refute this statement. Nonetheless, Di Fui was silent. He felt as though a needle repeatedly stabbed his heart. Chapter 2308. Whose child? 2. He looked at Gu Shijie again. She kept a smile on her rather emotionless face. The crowd could not really understand what was going on in her mind. She spoke up. I request that the Devil King be truthful and fair. Out of respect, she had referred to him as the Devil King. However, it sounded as though she had let go of any feelings for him. Di Fui's fingers tightened under his sleeves. He smiled and responded. I didn't expect you to remember my ability. He did have the ability to access the authenticity of the recorder spell, but he rarely used it. It had only been used once or twice in the upper bound. Furthermore, it was never used in front of her, and only a few people knew of it. He had also never used it in the Shura world, so he did not expect her to know it. Gu Shijie smiled. Please help to clarify the situation. Everyone turned their eyes to Di Fui, waiting for him to give a verdict. Di Fui put the recorder spell on his palm, and a white light exuded from it and covered the recorder. After a while, Di Fui calmly said, This voice recorder spell is genuine. Hence everything it played earlier is true. Everyone was stunned. When they looked at the Princess Yuanyuan, they felt as if the image of their idol had collapsed. Instead of switching it off, Di Fui left the spell on his palm. There is still a lot of content on this recorder. Since it has already started, let us listen to the full conversation. Brother, Yuanyuan shouted in a trembling voice. She started to beg. I made a mistake, and I know that I am wrong. Please don't play it. Di Fui could not care less at this point. He continued listening to the remaining recording. The Devil King is pampering you so much. He seems to give you anything you want. Therefore, it is expected that you do not care about these 50,000 devil coins. You have done an excellent job in this case. I am very happy, so this cream is a reward for you. Princess, only you can have the capital to use this cream as skincare. This small bottle requires a significant amount of herbs to produce. The Devil King has been very good to you. You talk a lot of nonsense. What I said is the truth. By the way, Princess, since it seems that the Devil King really wants to be married to you, when will you accept his proposal? It is not easy to get someone who loves you so much. Although you have to be reserved, don't let the Devil King wait for too long. I still want to test him. As long as he is sincere, I will fulfill him. It was a very common conversation between the master and the servant, but once it was released in such a public manner, Yuanyuan wanted to find a hole to hide inside so badly. She secretly peeked at Di Fui. He remained calm and expressionless, and he did not make any judgments for the time being. However, he seemed to have put on a smile. He really pampered her a lot, but that was because she had saved his life. He only treated her as a sister. He gave her enough materials, and also ascended her to a noble status, so that she would no longer suffer as how she used to do. Since when did he give her the impression that he would propose to her? It was such a joke. He did not even love her, so how could he propose to her? It would take a lot for him to fall in love with someone. He only proposed to one person before. Unfortunately, that person rejected him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.